Oh, it's American fart.
Well, welcome to the American Fork podcast, where you're going to learn where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going.
When we die.
Yeah, when we die.
When we die. Yeah.
Yes.
Plenty of things. But no, I really do want to get into a little bit more of where we came from. So I'm here. It's Bolt.
Hi, I'm Devin.
Phil. I'm Phil. This is the sound of Phil's voice.
This is the sound of an iPad with a Jeff behind it. Virtual Jeff.
It's actually a pretty good sounding iPad, Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
He's got a
Thank
great
you.
snowball microphone. And this is Jake.
Who knows anything about the history of American Fork, the city that we grew up in?
So I know just like, well, and maybe you can tell us if this is true or not, but my understanding is the name American Fork comes because the settlers came and the white settlers settled over here and the Hispanic settlers settled over here. So there became
that's totally what happened.
an American fork and a Spanish fork. So that's wrong. Is it totally?
That is completely wrong. No.
It's completely not true.
Okay, so Spanish Fork is called
Fake
that
news, Phil.
because the first recorded white men to come to Utah Valley was Dominguez and Escalante. Have you ever heard of? Anyway,
Sounds familiar.
yeah. So like in 1776, they were trying to find a route. How it's Route 66, but route any other way from Santa Fe to San Diego. And because nobody knew really how to get there, because the Grand Canyon was in the way and big deserts were in the way, so they were trying to find another route, and they made up their way to Utah Valley. They made it that far, but by the time they got there, they're like, this is taking too long, and they started making their way back. But so they came through Spanish Fork Canyon, and so that was the Spanish route that they took. Now American Fork is because it was originally called Lake City, actually, like in 1853.
I like that more, I think.
Well, yeah, everybody liked Lake City, except the problem is whenever they were sending mail that was supposed to go to Salt Lake City,
Dang it.
it kept ending up in Lake City.
That's true. It
And
is like
it became
exactly
a
the
little
same
bit
almost.
of a problem.
It should be Salt Lake City and Fresh Lake City.
Yeah. So 1853 is when American Fork was founded, but at the time it was founded as Lake City. It wasn't until 1860 that it was officially called American Fork, and that's just because of the American Fork River. Like the fork is in a fork in a river.
Oh, so it wasn't an abundance of utensils?
Nope.
Oh, dang it.
Or
It wasn't a racial
or a dividing
segregation.
segregation of different people.
That's what I always thought. Thanks a lot, social
we
studies
keep thinking
teacher.
that. Feel free.
We all, in junior high, we all took American Fork history, but I
we took
forgot
Utah
99% of it.
Yeah.
I remember that Dominguez and Santiago
Escalante. Well, because like Lake Powell has a bay called Escalante, is what
Yeah.
locals call it.
Escalante.
You gotta love how we screw up pronunciations all over the United States.
Like all the Native American names.
Or to me,
swim in
the
the
worst
creek.
one. I grew up in Texas, and Amarillo, Texas is Amarillo. Is what
Yeah.
it's supposed to be. But everybody's Amarillo. I'm from Amarillo, Texas. Nope, that's not how
right.
it goes.
Doesn't Mexico think that Texas is still their land or something?
Sure, we fought a couple wars over it, though.
Yeah,
so I think
something
they
about
know.
something about the Alamo.
You can't remember it though.
Yeah,
You having a hard time remembering that.
I don't remember.
Well, aren't we giving some of Texas to Mexico with the wall or whatever?
Yeah, well, I can't remember the exact amount, but because in order to build the wall, you have to have it far enough away from the Rio Grande River that is the actual border. So we're actually,
It's like their federal regulations or something on.
so we're actually giving away more land to Mexico by building the wall. But
There you go. Merry Christmas.
have at it.
But there are
Feliz
people
Navidad.
there are people that live on that will be technically living on the Mexico border, right?
I mean, it still
On the
will be the
Mexico
border,
side.
but there's no way to get to the United States.
Yeah, you'll still
So
be in the
you're-
United States, but
So it's a
Good
no
luck
man's
getting
land.
mail there, I guess. I don't-
Obviously, you just dig a tunnel under your floorboards,
Right.
right under the thing, and there you go.
But yeah, with American Fork, other parts of American Fork's history, obviously there were other peoples here before. You remember which native tribes there were? Indigenous
a
people?
lot of them.
The
There were
Utes, the Timpanogos.
I don't
What was
know. I know that Mount Timpanogos is named after, isn't that after a princess?
Yeah, but there was a tribe,
Huh.
and
Wow,
and
I
it might not be
certainly
their
know.
name, but the tribe that woman was named after, there was a tribe, and I can't remember if it's Timpanogos. I was just reading about it because I think Mormon settlers went in and killed a bunch of them up
For
a
sure they
canyon
did.
or something.
They killed plenty of them.
So,
Yeah. So
thanks a lot.
in the area, they're all derived from Shoshonean peoples. So you have the Paiutes, the Utes, the Shoshone themselves, and
Navajo.
Navajo were further south. Yeah, they were down in where Lake Powell, Arizona. That was all.
Were Cherokees among?
Cherokee
there
are
were
more in the
some-
plains. So they were.
Okay.
So if you get to like Oklahoma and the east side of the Rockies, that's where most of the Cherokee tribes were.
What were the cave dwellers down in southern Utah?
Well, you have the Anasazi were the original. I think Anasazi is Navajo for ancient peoples or ancient ones anyway.
Rock climbers.
And then you also had the Fremont people that were between the Anasazi and the Shoshone people.
I think Fremont is the ones we went on that hike, King Gulch or whatever. All those
Those cave dwellings up
caves
there in
and
the,
stuff. Yeah,
in the canyons.
I wish Tyler was on. I'm sure he knows all this, right?
he doesn't actually. He just knows what's racist and not.
Fair enough.
Cut that out, Tyler.
Well, he's the only one who has the right to tell us what's racist in regards to his peoples. But I mean, I guess we could tell him whether we're being racist or not because we should know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
We'll tell him what's
I know when
racist.
we are, but
But are we
if
funny?
it's funny, then
But if we're funny,
yeah.
we're funny when we're racist. Then that's
Exactly.
the only thing that matters. Right. So American Fork was founded, and eventually the railroad came through, and that's what really went. We went from having like 1,500 people in American Fork area to then became 2,000, 3,000, and so on. But what really started to gain some national attention was when they found some silver in the mines up American Fork Canyon. You guys know where those mines are?
Silver Lake Flats.
That's part of it. It's more if you go up towards Dutchman Flats. Do you know where that is?
Is that the one that's up higher?
Yeah, so if you're at Tibble Fork, Silver Lake Flats is if you take a left and stay on the
Left,
paved
go up
road and go
up the switchbacks.
switchbacks and get up
And
to
the
the
other
lake.
one is you go straight past it.
Yeah,
right?
so if you go straight on the dirt road, it goes several miles back into an area that's now called Dutchman Flats or Mary Ellen Gulch, I think is what
it's
it is.
pretty in
Mineral
there.
Basin.
Really pretty in there. And the fall is amazing.
And yeah, like in 1870s, some soldiers are back there just, I guess, doing some prospecting, and they found an area that looks like it was going to have some ore to it, and they took out a loan. So getting into the history, the really interesting and very exciting stuff that is the 1870s American
Polygamy.
Fork, Utah. We're not going to get into that too much.
Okay.
American Fork didn't have a ton of polygamy compared to everywhere else. We luckily started right after that.
We're not like those northern Utahns.
Yeah, those dang northerners. But we were much more involved in like raising chickens and things like that. So very important stuff.
And harvesting strawberries.
Harvesting strawberries? No, that was Pleasant Grove.
Yeah, close enough.
No, it's not. It's not close enough.
You're right.
Just because you live there,
It's not next door.
it's not. It's
Oh, you
it's a
do live
day's
there,
walk.
don't you?
Evermore strawberries.
Ever more strawberries.
Now, American Fork was first known for having
Steel.
the mining up American Fork Canyon. So there was a city up there actually called Forest City that had more people living in it than American Fork at the time.
Up the canyon?
Yeah, so in like 1870s is when it was really big. And so kind of how the story goes. So that's up Mary Ellen Gulch where Dutchman Flats is.
Ooh.
And there's still a graveyard there from Forest City. But
We should go
that's-
treasure hunting.
Yeah, you want to go grave robbing?
Is it still called Forest City?
Tomato.
Oh, okay.
White privilege, Jeff.
No,
So they're like foundations of houses. There's like
yeah. Well, there's also they had a smelter up there, so like they would mine everything out and
Smelter.
smelt it there so that it was refined, so they could actually send it down the canyon without it just being only rocks. And there was also another city right where Tibble Fork is. So, but that only had like 50 to 100 people living there. But
Wow.
But there was a railroad that actually went up American Fork Canyon. That's which I didn't realize until I was doing research on it because I didn't think that it was important enough. But so kind of how the
there's
story
not
goes-
anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. But the road follows the same trail that the railroad went on up to where Tibble Fork is. They were going to keep going, but the mines started to run out of money. But how
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that they filmed the video game Donkey Kong, where they ride on the mine carts in American Fork Canyon.
Yes,
that's where they filmed that video game.
Filmed the video
in
game
Tip
there.
Cave.
Yeah.
It was in
I think
Tip
you're right.
Cave.
That's why it looks so familiar.
Yeah.
Back when
And
they
there's
had
lots of
those,
monkeys up there too. I heard.
back when they had those 8-bit digital cameras.
Yes. It was 16.
Yeah, 16.
It was 16, possibly 32,
That's right.
and it was getting impressive.
Yep.
But
So realistic.
So how they found the mines up there, kind of how the story goes, is it was just two brothers that were up at Pittsburgh Lake. Has anybody ever been up to Pittsburgh Lake?
never even heard of it.
Yep.
It's pretty much at the top. So you've been there, Jeff?
Yeah. I believe we hiked up there and went camping.
They still
Not
have
us, but the Boy Scouts.
Do they still have like the cabin or remnants of it up there?
It was miserable when we went. We went up and the lake was frozen over. We
Ooh.
brought swimming suits and everything, and it was frozen over and impossible.
The one time I went up there, we brought fishing rods so we could try fishing, but we tried like power bait and salmon eggs, and the fish didn't know what to do with it, so we didn't catch a single thing.
Yeah.
But there were just these tiny little, like 6-inch
Guppies.
trout guppies that were up in that lake, all isolated to themselves because it never gets stocked or anything.
Baby fish.
But again, so there was just two brothers. They were doing some prospecting. They had taken out a loan from Bank of American Fork. Were up there, and they were running out of money, and so they weren't finding anything. So one of the brothers said, "Okay, we got to go do our last payment and then turn in our, whatever the rights are for mineral rights for this area." And then the other brother just like, "I'll go in one more time, see if I can find anything." And as he's going into the mine shaft that they've dug, there was one outcropping that he kept tripping over every single time. And so just out of frustration, he just took his pickaxe and beat the hell out of the thing that kept tripping him. And he found a bunch of silver.
Wow.
And that's where he found like this silver vein that had millions of dollars worth of silver that they found.
He sniffed and licked his pickaxe. Hi-ho, silver!
So he had to
You know-
run down and chase down his brother before he got to turning over the mineral rights. So
That's so funny.
It's just an interesting
awesome.
story of how they'd spent so much time and how many times did he trip over that outcropping.
As the crow flies, that's not far from the Park City silver mine,
yeah?
I think. And I wonder if it's a similar vein or related somehow.
So it's in Mineral Basin, and there's actually is it Alta that has the ski lifts that actually go down into American Fork Canyon now.
Yeah.
So it goes up and over and
Wow.
down into Mineral
Stupid
Basin.
Alta.
So we technically have, a ski resort in American Fork Canyon. You can't get to it from our side, but it's interesting to me.
Weren't
Yeah,
they-
there used to be all
Weren't
kinds
they
of
petitioning to make access to it from American
Probably.
Fork?
I don't know.
I think they wanted to. And then, they'd have to widen the roads and increase traffic.
Like you could pay, park, and get on that one.
Yeah, there was
Lift.
something. It was on the, on the ballot, whatever thing to vote for, whether you want American Fork Canyon access to, should we widen it? And anyway,
yeah.
no one wanted it.
I actually think that'd be cool.
How often do you guys go up American Fork Canyon?
never now.
Too many people
never.
already?
Yeah.
It's way too crowded. Yeah.
4th of July weekend, we camp up there.
Where do
every
you go?
year. Usually Timpanuki or Timpuniki.
Timpanuki has
How are we
the
spell
most campsites So your odds of finding a place are really high up there.
Yeah, we reserve it like months in advance.
Tipanuki, because if you can't get it, then you got to go to the like Salamander Flats. That's just up above it where nothing's reserved, and everybody just has drunken bonfires or whatever they want to.
Yeah, we used to go up there as teenagers, and there would never be anyone up there on a weekend. And now it's
Right.
like you can camp there with 50 other families on the big field. Like, it's crazy.
Well, what would you like to see done differently about American Fork Canyon? You want them to widen the road so it's just easier to get in and out, or more campsites?
Phil wants
or-
coronavirus to continue.
Yeah, I think that's the best. Actually, if they were to just like divert some traffic into the river as they come in.
Every other car,
Yeah.
they just put down the partition. And
Oh, you were an odd
you
number
took-
today. Sorry.
Dang it, I had to turn left today. I lost
So
my car.
maybe some hypothermia will weed that out.
American
I just
Fork
want him to.
Canyon,
I want him to take down the fencing at the mouth of the canyon where we used to go swimming, so that people can just go swimming there now,
Oh, what's that called?
right at the mouth.
Oh, at that dam. the-
We threw Beagle off
Okay.
that.
They've closed so many of
Yeah.
our
That's right.
swimming spots since
I
high
know.
school.
yeah.
All of them, I think, actually.
Swimming's too dangerous for kids these
Right.
days.
Yeah.
It is.
Except for
They
Devin's
can't handle
house.
it.
That's the only one open still.
Oh, yeah.
Nope, they closed
No,
that
they-
down too.
Oh, sorry.
Someone else moved in.
Oh,
I think you can still swim in Utah Lake, though, if you can stand the smell.
Goodness.
Yeah.
We got to dredge it.
And the massive carp.
Get China out here to dredge that, please.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
if you don't
China.
mind, like your feet just like drudging up so much crap with every kick.
What's the algae bloom? Is it red algae that comes up every now and then?
Oh, I didn't know if that comes
The
does it-
toxic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but
It's delicious.
the red
it's called.
Try the red
Yeah, is
stuff.
that
It's
it?
delicious.
the
the red tide in the Philippines.
That's not the same thing. Apparently, it
gonna
killed
call
a bunch of people's dogs, and they put warnings up when it's out to not go.
Because only dogs are willing to drink that water anyway.
Yeah,
Challenge accepted. Let's go.
Hey, we used to go camping on the west side of Utah Lake, and we'd go swimming in there because it was hot as heck, and we wanted to cool down. That water was super satisfying because it's like a desert over there,
We used to go
and I turned out great.
we used to go jet skiing there all the time with Devin's family. And
Ooh,
now it's like, ew, I wouldn't get in there.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Because there's this big, should be beautiful lake right in front of us.
Yeah, it should be.
It's not. And why is it not beautiful?
They probably, does it not drain properly? Is that
Lots of reasons. It's a big mud. It's not deep enough, basically.
is that it?
So it's an average of like 10 feet deep, like at its deepest.
I was gonna say I think it's shallower than that on average.
Yeah, I guess you do. If you average it all out, it's less than 10 feet, which is crazy because it's like 20 miles by
It's a
5
big lake,
miles or
but-
something like
yeah,
that.
I mean, there's tons of places you can be out in the middle of the lake and just walk. Seriously,
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the whole
Or
lake is
you
murky
sink,
instead of it
but
just
in
being at
mud
the bottom.
rather
but you can
than-
still walk it. Yeah, your feet are sinking in the mud, but you can walk you could probably get across the lake if you knew the right path to take.
But it's a lake that if you pee in it, you're making it cleaner. So
because of the ammonia? Yeah, I went to Sebago Lake in Maine, which is probably a comparably sized lake, and it's also pretty shallow, and it's like the clearest, cleanest water you
Is
can
it
imagine.
rocky on the bottom?
It's rockier, yeah. I think
probably
so.
why.
I think that has a lot to do with
well,
it.
there's two other things that also happened. You have Geneva Steel came in right around, was it World War II when Geneva Steel came in?
I wasn't there.
I'll say yes,
42,
there?
just for the sake of
1942, at the height of
it was
Hitler's-
exactly on June 1st, 1942.
Yeah.
And
Don't look
the
it up.
day that they polluted the lake.
yes, that's when they started saying this lake is
The
beautiful.
day that
Let's
went
see what we
lived
can
in
do about
infamy.
that. But Geneva Steel created tons of jobs, and so it's totally justified.
Yep, that's the
Yep.
thing. That's how it works.
In fact, American Fork celebrates it with our local
Steel Days.
Steel Days is the name of the city's anniversary. What is it called? Celebration days of being a city.
Yeah, I don't know what we call them, but
'Cause
every
each-
city around
yeah.
here has one.
Yeah, it's Strawberry Days for Pleasant Grove, Pioneer Days for Lehigh, and we're over here in the desert days for Saratoga Springs.
I bet
That's
you.
really what they call it?
I don't know
Okay.
what it's called.
I bet you it was started by that carnival company. They're like, let's get everybody to have a day,
Fun
and then
show.
we'll bring our carnival
yeah.
there.
Well, but pretty much every city finds something, a festival to celebrate something.
Yeah.
Some reason to have all the carnies.
Exactly.
We need to start our own city and do Sasquatch Day.
Yeah.
Is Phil our
Bigfoot Day.
mascot?
Yeah, I'll be it. That's right.
No, we're gonna do something more mythical than Phil.
We can do it at my property.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, tell everyone where your property is so we can all meet
It's
there.
at 22 degrees, 72 south, 841 degrees, 22 north,
6 minutes due east.
6 minutes mark.
27142 Fake Street.
Go there.
So yeah,
Minutes.
with the lake got screwed up by Geneva Steel, but before that, my ancestors decided to screw it up first by introducing carp into the lake.
Carp?
Yep.
Your ancestors
My
put the carp
ancestors
in there.
from
It was you, Boulter.
Norway.
You're the bad one.
Yep. So because they knew how to fish carp, and I don't remember exactly
And
how
screw
they
things
brought
up.
it over. But it saved the Utah Provo settlers the first 2 winters they were there because
And then
they
killed
ate fish, and then it killed
all
all the
the
moss, all the local fisheries, and that's why the lake also is so ugly because there's no moss at the bottom to keep the sludge from churning around.
No moss because there's so many carp.
So many carp. So now
It is
we
so bad.
collectively are all the county of Utah is paying millions of dollars a year to get all the carp out of Utah.
Isn't there a bounty on them? Is that?
Yeah, so basically they're taking nets and nets of carp and they're turning it into like fertilizer.
Uh-huh.
So it's getting used, but you're welcome.
When did this start?
Oh, let's see. So who was it? It was the Alpins.
No, I mean, when did we start paying people to get carp
Oh, just
out
a few
of?
years ago.
That's recent.
In the last decade or so.
But they're hard. I've never caught a carp there. They're hard to catch. I
They're
don't know.
now because they've gotten rid of millions of tons.
Yeah.
Do you know like the status where we're at?
I haven't
What's
looked
like
lately.
the-
I looked a couple of years ago and they said they had got about 60% of the carp out, but that was like several years into it.
Have
so-
you ever heard anything like they predict once we get so many carp out, then X number of years, and then
I haven't looked it up lately.
And people can enjoy swimming there.
then
You-
the
you
lake
still
gets
have-
its
you
moss
still have to
back or
dredge
whatever.
it. You still have to dredge it. Like
They don't think the moss will come back unless it's dredged.
it could, but then people would have to also not be on their boats like churning it up too.
Yeah.
So everything would have to kind of settle for it to be a good lake. But
Need to fill it with rocks.
yeah,
Sparkly
Lava
ones.
rocks. Lava
Yeah.
rocks.
Build a
would
bunch
do
of
it.
islands on it.
Lava
That'll
rocks.
fix the
Pop rock
problem.
filters.
Boulter,
with
I want you
pop
and your
rocks.
family to go sit on like Main Street American Fork with signs around your neck that
so
says,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Holding dead carp underneath your arms for
You need
like
to walk
48
through
hours.
town with a scarlet sea.
Yeah.
it wasn't the Bolters though. It wasn't
Oh.
the Bolters. So
Okay.
it's not my direct namesake. It's my
Sounds like backpedaling.
I'm
Your
Bolter.
mom's family or your wife's?
So it's my dad's family, but it's like my grandma's
Oh, gotcha.
family. Anyway, so
You're lucky.
Yeah.
You barely skated by on that one.
So I'm good.
My dad has a boat, and he has literally what's the word I'm looking for? Beached his boat. I don't think that's the right word. Anyways, in the middle of Utah Lake. No joke.
Bottomed out.
Run
Yeah.
a ground.
So run aground, like literally.
Did he just leave it? He's like,
going
I'm
full
done.
speed, and all of a sudden, no, it was like it came up slowly, but like going full speed, and all of a sudden it's like slowing down, and then we're at a stop, and everyone's like, "What the heck?" And we jump out of the boat, and we're just like standing on the ground,
And you push
and
the
we
boat.
and we had to
off.
push the boat out. We had to push it the opposite way back
Sounds
out.
like a good time. See, it's a wonderful lake.
And you're probably
Yeah.
sunk down in the mud.
Yeah,
like
and
2
then we
feet.
smelled like crap for the rest of the day.
Yep.
Like carp crap.
God bless you, American Fork Lake.
Thanks, Bolt's family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are so welcome. Because Provo wouldn't have so many people in it if it wasn't for us today. Aren't you so
They
happy
would have
about
all
that?
died. Yep.
Yeah, they would have all died. And no, it really is interesting when I was looking into the history, like how many people did come through like Salt Lake and Utah Valley and are like, this place looks awesome. Like we could stop here. But we're going to California and Oregon, so we're not gonna
Keep
stop.
on moving.
Yeah.
Let's keep going because this would be a lot of work.
I mean, I'm glad that people chose to stop here in Utah, but at the time, that was the bad choice. California was a much better option. For sure.
No, it's crazy. Like 1847 is when the pioneers came in, right?
This is the place.
Yeah, this is.
Well, didn't
the
Brigham
right
Young
place.
say this is the place, move
says,
on?
"This is
Didn't
the
he
right
literally
place."
mean keep going?
This is the
to
place,
California.
No,
but it sucks. Move on.
No, because
Right.
they had bought a bunch of maps actually of the mineral basin. So they were like thinking somewhere around here is where we're going to stop. And there were other groups of Mormons that actually had gone to California in San Joaquin Valley, which is like where Sacramento is, and they had already set up like shops and were already being prosperous. And they went and met the Mormons in Utah. I was like, guys, what are you doing here? Let's go to California. We're already set up. Things are good.
This is freaking desert here. What
And
are you?
Brigham Young was like, maybe, because he's like, this sucks out here. But
Well, people don't know this, but Brigham Young was a really avid surfer.
Yeah.
And so he was like, kind of like, you know what? Maybe we should keep going. But yeah.
This is the place, brah.
He's like, I see some white caps out on that lake.
One of his
though.
wives said no. He had so
there were
many of
some.
them.
Oh, those jerks.
It only took one. Only took one to decide.
Do we know what time of year was it when he said this is the place, or when they got there?
The correct quote is, "This is the right place."
This is the right place. What time was it? Springtime?
It was
summertime.
July
July
24th.
It was July.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so I think it was July
That's why we celebrate it,
22nd when he said that.
Oh, that's right.
And July 24th is when they settled in the valley.
So probably it looked terrible
Yeah.
because usually in
was all
July
just
Utah's
desert.
like super
Pretty
dry.
brown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the reason we have so many big trees in the Salt Lake Valley is because the pioneers planted them,
Right.
And they irrigated.
Right.
But when they got here, it was probably all just
Dry.
desert.
Yeah.
It is desert.
Unless it
Grass,
was like that
desert
year,
bushes
like
and scrub oak.
was it last
Maybe.
year, the year before, where it
Tumbleweed.
was so wet, like all the way up through
yeah.
June, and everything was super green. So it could have been green, but
So it's
likely
it's
not.
definitely green in June, but by July all that grass turns
Yeah.
yellow and gets dry, and by August you're
That's
like,
when the first firework restrictions started too. That first summer, it was super dry.
This is
And
the right
that's-
place. but
and that's when the
not
word
to
of
light
wisdom
fireworks.
actually started. They stopped smoking once they set half of the valley on fire.
And they're like, we got to preserve this planet. What else was I going to ask? Something about something.
Something important.
Where is the water in Salt Lake Valley?
In the rivers.
There are rivers up there.
Why are you asking about Salt Lake? And
Well,
not-
because they settled Salt Lake first,
Yep.
didn't they?
Yeah,
But there's a huge freshwater lake down here.
that's true. And like I said, that's where Escalante came through. And they didn't actually go all the way. Like they saw the Salt Lake, but they had talked to the locals, and they already told them like, you can't drink that water. So they're like, all right, well, we see it. Now let's start heading south towards San Diego, but they never made it to San Diego. So
Oh, the first people.
yeah, so Escalante,
Oh, Escalante, way
Escalante
back-
and Dominguez in like 1776.
1776.
So if I'm not mistaken, the Jordan River runs from Utah Lake to the Great Salt Lake
Yep.
Oh,
through
okay.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And then also each canyon has water that flows through it. I don't know the names of all of them.
Bob and George. And,
Stephen, Jason,
Stephen Canyon.
City Creek
but
runs right through.
City Creek.
Right
Ayo,
there.
you're
Yeah,
right.
Utah Lake doesn't have any outlet rivers or streams.
Yeah.
They only water flows into it.
Are there more rivers up there? Is that why they chose Salt Lake as opposed to Utah?
There's a lot of water that flows through. There's actually an
the Holy Ghost
underground
told him where to
water.
stop, obviously.
Yeah, I guess that was it.
Yeah.
So there's
Go ahead.
sorry. There's underground water that flows through Sugar House, and there's also an area. I don't know how specific you want to get, but it's basically by Liberty Park called Liberty Wells, and it's got a huge aquifer underneath it.
But they wouldn't
I
have
just
known
know 'cause-
those. They wouldn't have known those things at first, though. I assume.
If they use those divining rods, they would have.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
fake
Have you ever
things.
actually
Or
used
God
those?
just told him.
I haven't, but people really do still use them.
No,
And
because it's weird because they still pick up like some kind of electromagnetic field. So if you just have two divining rods that they basically are just, I don't know, how do you describe it? The divining rods. They're basically
it's like two. It's
metal.
like a big not horseshoe, wishbone kind of
Well,
thing.
there's difference because you have the divining rods that are just
they're
a stick,
two rods. Yeah.
but it's actually two rods that like freely move around in 360, and you're holding. So there's two rods that they move around freely, and when they cross is when you mark. So
Right.
but like as you get closer to something, like they actually kind of point towards wherever like either an electromagnetic field is.
Yeah.
They're going to cross.
And so when they cross is when there's a flow, and which often is also a river underground.
Yeah.
I know you
So
can.
it's crazy
You
that
can
it
pay
actually
people
works.
to come out and do that. To find
Yeah,
a
they
well.
they still do it, but I think the science, like when they've actually like studied it, they say it's 50-50.
This
Like
is, yeah, I was just
half
going to
the
say,
time.
from a psychology class in college, we talked about it, and
Oh, okay.
they brought up a bunch of studies and said it's straight up. You can just walk out in the middle of nowhere and guess, and
Yeah.
you're just as likely to get it as right as a divining rod.
Yeah.
But
I guess just
Who knows?
anecdotally, because my dad has some.
yeah,
And so we've tested it 3 or 4 times, and we always end up in the middle of the road where the pipes actually go. Again, we know they're there to start with, so maybe psychologically we're doing
Yeah.
something.
like a
Like a
so
Ouija board. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this was back in my college days, and it is possible that science has decided that
In your
magic is
liberal
real,
college that taught
Since
you
then.
only true things.
Or science is wrong.
or science is wrong. Yeah, maybe science has gotten wrong since then, or maybe magic is real now. We
Indeed.
don't know.
You're talking to 3 guys who wear magic underwear.
Speaking of wrong science, I don't want to derail the subject, but you guys
Here it
all watched
goes.
that. You brought up
But I'm
that
going to.
Mark Hoffman documentary on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah,
That was cool.
Oh, you watch it?
Yeah.
that's it. That's all.
I was disappointed
That's
it
a
was
great
only
addition.
3
You
guys remember
episodes
that?
long.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be longer.
Remember that?
You
That was
remember?
awesome.
You remember?
I thought it was really interesting. I liked it.
Yeah, it was
We
fun.
finished it.
Remember in Abbey Road?
But do you remember?
Wait, so did everybody
was
watch
awesome.
it?
Play that
Yeah.
song back.
Well, I
Yeah.
watched it.
Did you watch it, Jake?
I did.
Did you guys
I
know?
was, I was disappointed it was only 3 episodes.
Did you
I know.
know about Mark Hoffman before, though?
Yeah.
I knew the basic story. I just didn't know all the details.
Yeah, I guess I was the same.
I knew most of it, but didn't realize how big of the Oath of a Freeman thing, how big of a deal that was, and that they'd like done. That's why I brought it up, because they like sent it to the nuclear physicists who like did radio waves, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is legit." And
But to go into psychology, it's interesting that he would always like ask people, "Hey, what are you looking for?" And then he'd produce it, and people
Yeah.
were like, "This is exactly what I needed. Let's make sure that it's real." And then nobody's like, "How in the hell did you find this?"
Right. And that was more though of a thing of Mark Hoffman being really smart and not the science being wrong, because he's like using super old paper. He has a method for producing the ink. Like he knew ways that he could trick the machines that they were using to test this stuff.
well, specifically, they were testing the ink that he made with.
Yeah.
That's how they
radio.
ended up catching him. But my understanding is when they tested it, when the FBI or whatever tested it on that, that big machine, they were ripping off a piece of paper and testing to see if the paper was actually as old as they claimed it was. And it was, because he had gone and ripped paper out of old books
Yeah.
to use when he forged.
Right, and they sent it to that other lab that tested the ink with the radiocarbon whatever, and they said, yeah, this is legit. The way they actually caught him on that one was they found the plate or whatever that he actually made it with. And they were like, oh, did you forge it? And he was like, yeah. And they were like, oh. So it was like all the science and all the scientists said, yes, this is real. It was only when they actually found the plate and had him admit it that they found out that it wasn't.
But that also gets into what's the bias called when you are trying to prove something true for your own profit, like publishing bias, basically.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, that's what
Yeah.
it is. And so pretty much all of these people that are paid to verify it are like, we're going to get more notoriety if we're the ones who prove that it's right, rather than if we're the ones who prove that this was nothing.
Right.
What I thought was interesting at the end of the documentary is it says since that happened, there's been like hundreds of documents that we know about now that Mark Hoffman forged, and they assume that there are hundreds and hundreds more out there still that are sitting in museums, being touted as legitimate documents, and we just have no idea.
The Declaration of
Let's do
Independence.
it. Let's do it, guys. Let's figure it out.
Let's forge them.
Crack
Forge
the
something.
case.
What would you forge?
I would forge
The most expensive
something
thing.
that some kind of
Nope,
trust
because
that
if it's the most
benefits
expensive
me.
thing, there's going to be too many people paying attention to it.
The seventh most
7.
expensive
There we go.
thing.
That's a good number.
I would forge some kind of trust from like Rockefeller if I'm related to him somehow. That's like, if my 19th descendant is a male,
He gets all my
he
money.
gets everything.
Give him the keys to 30 Rock.
Yeah, I would
I
definitely.
couldn't even
that.
change my F's into an A on a report card. So
without them knowing, without your parents knowing.
yeah, exactly. So
B's are so much
chances of me
easier.
forging something are pretty low.
B's are more realistic.
That's because your
anyway,
name
so-
was spelled wrong for the first 20
Yeah.
years.
That was the other fascinating thing is he's saying at the end, he's like, yeah, when I was 14, I would change coins and I sent them to the U.S. Mint and they said they were legitimate. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And he's making a really good point. Like, if an expert says it's real, it is real. But then I was thinking, wait, you're a master forger and a liar. How do we even know that story's true? Like, it's like we don't even know what this guy has done or hasn't done. Like,
Except for
so-
all the documents they found.
right, the ones he's actually done. But
once he was coming clean, because it isn't very often that like when someone gets caught, they're like, okay, this is how I did it all.
Yeah.
So
And
if he was telling the truth, then great, that's unique. But
yeah, it
because he was able to trick like the lie detector test to an amazing degree, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think wasn't the Unabomber kind of like that? Like once they caught him, he was like just spilling his guts because he wanted people to like see
Spilling
how smart
his
he
guts.
was and how great
Yeah.
he was.
I believe that people leave breadcrumbs like that. They want to be caught because to show people how smart they were or smooth they were, like the Ted Bundys and stuff.
Yeah.
And they always want to keep a little bit of a secret, but they want people to know what they've accomplished in their mind.
Yeah, so for our listeners who don't know what we're talking about, there's a documentary on Netflix called Murder Among the Mormons. If you're into Mormon history, or even if you're not, it's really interesting because this guy, Mark Hoffman, forged a bunch of documents and killed some people to try and cover it up.
So 100%, we're going to have to put a spoiler alert on this episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's number 9 on Netflix right now. So
So
I'm sure
It's
people are
also
going to be
something
watching
that
it.
happened in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like...
Yeah, if you didn't know,
it's not,
Well,
yeah,
in Utah,
Yeah.
you most likely knew about
Yeah.
it. And that's what was unique in how they filmed it. Because at first they filmed it in such a way where the majority of people watching wouldn't know who placed the bombs.
yeah,
there.
they're like, oh, the church might have done it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Gordon B. Hinckley bombed his car.
But that's also what the entire state of Utah went through for like a month or however long it was
Yeah.
before.
I
things
wish they would have gotten into that side of it more, and they didn't. The church's involvement and that whole side
how
of it.
much of our tithing was spent on
Yeah,
those
yeah. Like
documents.
how many
those
documents did they
documents.
actually buy from Mark Hoffman? How did those conversations go? That'd be really interesting. You know, press conferences they did afterwards, because I know there was some denying that they had bought some things from Mark Hoffman, and then it came out later they actually had. And
Well, it was embarrassing, obviously.
yeah. So that side of it is really interesting.
Because, and well, it's also interesting because the Mormon Church has a little bit of a history of this. Like, take the 116 pages of the first part of the Book of Mormon. Like, those were apparently lost, or somebody else got a hold of them, and the plan was for them to make forgeries or whatever and mess it up. So it's interesting that the church already is involved in the history of something like this, where other people are trying to mess with it. So they should have, I guess, been more careful, or should have known that other people are out to mess with them. So, but they
Yeah, well,
they didn't get it. They screwed up.
good at
and-
forgery.
Well, it's just like you were saying, that confirmation bias, like, is so exciting, and terrifying, obviously, to find out that, oh, something could upend what we think we know about our own history. Like for any typical person, imagine finding some document by Abraham Lincoln saying that I always thought slavery should happen, but I'm doing it because of blah 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 or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it
With
would.
that, another really interesting thing on Netflix. Has anybody watched Amend? That's a new one, a documentary on Netflix that's about the 14th Amendment. It's hosted and narrated by Will Smith and a bunch of other people. And it came out, in February during Black History Month.
Oh, isn't it called 14?
I think it's called Amend.
Oh, is it called Amend?
or amendments, one of those.
Yeah.
But it is all about the 14th Amendment. And in one of the first episodes, they really went into stuff that Abraham Lincoln said before he did the Emancipation Proclamation. And he had all the notable African-American political figures at the time come in to the White House, not to have a discussion, but to be like, let me tell you what's going on in the country. We got a civil war on, and it's kind of your guys' fault.
Yeah.
He's like, if it wasn't for blacks in the United States, we wouldn't be at war right now.
Yeah.
Ugh. That's not the Abraham Lincoln that I was taught, but that's
Yeah, and there's actually quite a few things that he said that people don't like. So it probably wasn't the best example. What I was
anyway,
what I was
it's what
saying,
you were
like
saying.
if we found out something new that like totally shook everything. There's another documentary on Netflix which I forget the name of, but it's
Trumbo.
It's not Trumbo. It's Trumbo 2.
Oh, okay.
But
the Trumbinator.
Today on Phil's Documentary Corner.
I think it just came out, but it's about, you remember a couple of years ago, there was like this big thing where they found out like $80 million worth of art had been forged in the art world, and it all came through this one dealer. It's really good. You should check it out, but it's actually the same kind of thing. And they're actually describing it. The dealer's describing it. She's like, I see this art for the first time. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I love it. She's like, I'm examining the frame of the wood and the canvas. I send it to all these experts. They have it. They send it to the foundations of that artist. Like, what's the guy that sprays all the stuff? Jackson Pollock. They send it to the Jackson Pollock Foundation, and they're like, yeah, this is legit. Wow. This is a real piece. And then they find out later, obviously, that it's not. So
Mark Hoffman did it.
Yeah. So it's not just like it happens all over. Like people just, it's a con is really what it is. Like,
do you ever come across? Well, I guess I work in a restaurant, and every now and then we come across counterfeit bills. People try.
Oh,
to pay.
really?
Yeah. No, it's becoming more common actually.
Huh.
I think 10 years ago, maybe one counterfeit bill that I came across in like a 5-year period. Now, at least once a month, people are trying to pay with.
Wow.
At what point in the process does that get caught? Like when you go to the bank, that cash?
So say if it's a $20 bill that feels weird. So we have a black light that checks a couple different things, and
you have the little pen that turns brown or whatever.
We have a pen, but the pen you can basically take a $1 bill, bleach it, and then print $20 bill stuff onto it. But it looks weird.
So are your employees coming to you before they give this customer their food and saying something's weird about this bill?
Yeah. So basically,
if happens?
We've trained them like if something feels weird. So some of them have slipped through. Like, once we like deposit it to the bank, they're the ones who tell us, hey, this was wrong. And so you guys are out $50 or whatever it was. But we've caught them a couple of times, and they just fill it, and they get a manager over, and I just say, hi, where did you get this bill? And so I can think of 4 examples. 2 of the times they just walk away.
They just walk away.
They walk away because they're caught.
So they're the culprit.
Yeah, that's stupid. They should act surprised.
Yeah.
And then because the ones who do it know that we are supposed to call the cops if we find it, anytime that we know we find a counterfeit bill. And so they leave.
Have you actually had someone stay and called the cops?
So not me, another manager has at another restaurant. And so, but they left, but we then, submit to the cops, our video footage. But
so
like I said, it's weird. It's becoming more common.
So it was never a situation where like the person giving it to you was duped. Like
No, that can happen too.
Yeah.
But have you actually seen that? Or are you always seeing the person run away?
One of the 4 times it seemed like it was, they just got it. Their story was they got it from the bank, that's not likely though. A bank runs everything through and double checks it.
My drug deal or prostitute or.
I mean, your boobs are huge. I want to squeeze them. But I don't know how long before we just get rid of cash altogether.
I was just thinking about that the other day, but I think we need to keep cash
so that we can
need to
pay
keep some
illegals.
kind of currency.
We got to be able to go to the nickelcade somehow.
Jake, joke's on you because Nickelcade doesn't take nickels anymore.
Yeah, they give you a card,
Like
electronic
swipe card.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking about really, with all this inflation that I think is happening and starting to happen, is if you do print a finite amount of cash, then in theory you help curtail that inflation. But where you have
Can't you do the same thing with digital currency?
Yes.
yeah, you
Yep.
could, I guess, but like,
Oh, we're gonna get into financials now, aren't we?
is that easier to forge, or I don't know.
Forge digital
forge digital
currency?
currency? Very easy to forge digital currency,
Yeah.
unless you're using Bitcoin or blockchain.
Yeah.
What's the
Why are
movie
you saying
where
it's
they
very easy
scrape?
to forge digital currency?
Okay,
Well,
so
let me. I was going to tell you, there's
yeah.
a movie, and I don't know if this is exactly forging digital currency, but every transaction had a percentage of a penny or a very small fraction of money that was going through. Do you guys remember this movie?
Office
and they
Space?
were skimming off all these small percentages of each transaction, and they
Entrapment.
became millionaires.
Office Space.
But that's not creating money.
Mission,
It is
Mission
Office
Impossible
Space.
3.
It is.
That's just straight
Yeah.
stealing. That's
I
not
win.
creating money.
10 points.
So that's my question,
But it can
though.
only happen in a digital format, though.
Every time that they make a mortgage, they create money. So if you want to start a bank, you have to have, I think, $12 million to start out with before whatever the regulating committee is that you have to go through in order to start a bank. But you only have
Let's
to
do
keep
it.
10% of what you loan out in reserves. So if you have $100 million in your bank, you can send out $1 billion worth. And so you create a mortgage and you're creating that money. You aren't actually giving people that money. You're creating a mortgage that then is slowly paid back.
Right. You're just
And so you
saying
instantly
there's money
created
now.
more money.
Right.
So that's not
Saying
creating money. That's money that other people already had that they're giving
But
to you. It's a transfer
yes,
of money.
Yes and no, because
No, because Boulter's saying that if I have $1 million in the bank, the government says you can create 10 million and
Yes.
loan it out.
you can loan it out.
Well, no. So they're giving you a loan on your house now, which they didn't have the money to back up that loan. That's what Boulter's saying.
Right.
So they give you a loan on that, but you have to use your actual money and transfer that money back to the bank to make payments to the bank.
So
But
over
if the
time, it
fa-
becomes
if the,
real money.
If the loan
is what you're
defaults,
saying.
No,
and you don't pay
it's
it
a
back?
transfer of real money.
Well, no, because the bank.
The money I use to pay off my loan is not created money. So this is just a transfer of money.
No, but the money the bank used to buy your home from whoever owned it created that money when they transferred it to them.
and so that money went to someone else.
In theory, like they may have had the capital to do that, but in theory, Boulter's saying they only have to have 10% of what they loan out. So the government is saying you can create this amount of loans, even though you don't have that money. If that's correct, I'm assuming
Yeah, I mean-
blocking Google knows exactly.
Well, don't assume too much, I guess.
That sounds fishy to me.
Yeah, it is fishy.
It is super fishy, and I'll tell you what, in the precious metals market, it's the same thing. Like the SLV is like a stock that's traded for silver, and they supposedly will allow you to exchange that for physical silver. But the truth, this is what, after the GameStop thing was going on, people were talking about the Reddit guys moving over to silver to do a push. And one of the things that they thought of is we all buy this stock and then we all request the physical silver, because the truth is they don't have it.
Yeah.
They because precious metals in particular, when you buy the stock, has an option to request the physical nature.
And you
right?
know who you can blame for all of this? Abraham Lincoln.
Okay. The guy
All
on the
comes back
five.
to him.
So I'm
The
actually
racist.
finding it's a little reversed from that. I think it's actually that they can only loan out 90% of what they actually have. So they're not
No.
actually creating the
They
money.
have to have 10% in reserve.
No, so
basically.
you can create. So if you have $10 million and you start a bank, you don't loan out $9 million.
But the loan is not actually creating money. That's where I'm getting thrown off. Where's the creation of money actually
So-
happening? Maybe I'm just not getting it, but
When it's created, it is slowly paid back over time,
and that's a transfer of money. It's
a transfer
So
of
it's not
money,
a creation of
but
money.
it's creating instant inflation.
You're creating
I
an
need to
instant,
draw it out, but-
like agreement for future money, but that's not an actual creation of money.
But when you buy a place, your money went to someone else.
Yeah, but so if I You're telling me that the bank, so let's say I'm going to transfer, I own my house, I'm going to refinance my home, and it's going to end up getting transferred from bank A to bank B. So bank B has to pay the full cost of that mortgage to bank A, right? In order
I'm not a banker, so I give up.
Well, I mean, if they're going to take that mortgage from bank A, they've got to pay bank A for it.
I just flip
right?
burgers for a living, so
Bank A makes the money.
You're telling me that bank A never actually sees any money because bank B didn't actually have the money.
well, first off, it's called Bank of American Fork. And
whichever one. Choose your
Alta
banks.
Bank.
yeah, now Alta Bank.
But bank B goes to bank A and they're like, we don't have to have the money to pay you because the government said we don't. So we're going to take the mortgage from you and that house, but we never actually give you any money because this is how it works.
Sure.
I'm just not getting,
So-
like, they have to actually give bank A the cash. They have to give them the money.
So
right?
I found
Yes, that's what's called a run on the bank.
I think what it is, at least from what I'm finding, is banks actually do have to have the capital. So if a bank has
Okay.
$10 million, they can loan out 9 million, but
10
they
million.
have to keep $1 million in case people come to withdraw money.
Yeah, so that's
so-
when you run into the run on the bank. Like take It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
You know, he didn't have that money on hand because he had loaned it out to
Right.
everyone else.
That's
so
still
he
not
paid
a
them.
creation of money. That's still a transfer of money, right? So everybody deposits their money in their savings accounts. Then he uses that money to go help build houses or whatever he's doing in It's a Wonderful Life, right? There's no creation of money happening. It's just a transfer. Money's moving around.
But we do
right?
agree, like this stimulus that just happened, 1.9 trillion. That's a literal creation of money.
Some of
right?
it is
I don't know,
Some of it is
actually.
bonds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's taking a ledger in the treasury and marking it negative in one column and positive in another column, and that's it. And they just create the money.
There
That's I know for sure that's not the case, Jeff.
I'm telling you, dude. Look at where did 1.9 trillion dollars
Well,
come
some
from?
of it is going to come from loans.
Well,
Right.
of all
It's
the
not
money,
loans from what though?
of all the
From
money-
other
No.
countries, from
Of
other
all the
places.
money-
It's not 100% just we said we're making 1.9 trillion. Some of it's money we have. Some of it comes from taxes. Some of it will come from loans. Some of it may be created. I don't know exactly what the breakdown is, but I'm very doubtful that they just said we just created 1.9 billion or trillion. What is it? 1.9 trillion
1.9 trillion.
for this.
Unbelievable
well,
money.
only like 10% of the world's money is actual physical money. The other 90-something% is digitally created.
so-
The question is
Yeah.
how is digital money created?
In the
as
same
opposed
way,
to being
right?
printed.
And so instead of printing it, you just say, you're right. You like put it in the computer. The money's there now, right?
That's right.
But
That's what I'm saying. I think that's essentially what they've done. And I guarantee, I get what you're saying. It's not 100% of the 1.9 trillion, but I promise you, they didn't go, "Hey, China,
Can we get
can
a
I borrow
loan
some
for?
money?"
I don't think
Well, I
China
mean,
even has that much money. I
right,
don't
but
think
we get X number of dollars from taxes each year, right? Like, so some of tax money is going to go
Yeah.
to fund that 1.9 trillion. I don't know what we get in taxes.
Yeah, I'd be
but
interested to know
What's the actual breakdown?
When the government makes an expenditure, how much of that money is actual money?
Yeah.
Because at least the Federal Reserve, which is we know it's not an actual government organization, can print money, but obviously it's backed by the government. So that would be an interesting topic to look into.
And is that like part of their debates? I've never actually really thought about this before. When they're debating like this $1.9 trillion stimulus package, are they also debating exactly where the money comes from and what percentages? Like how we're going to pay for this? Okay,
when
this percentage taxes, that percentage creating money.
Right. I'm sure
Highly
Rand Paul
doubt.
probably brings it up.
But it's an interesting thing because I guarantee that because I have a bunch of kids, the stimulus check that I'm going to get is more than what my taxes would be this year.
I think you're only getting for you and your wife on this one, not for kids.
Nope, you do.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
kids
for
too.
all
I thought it was
dependents.
$1,400 per adult. on this
And
one.
for
So
child,
2,800
every-
bucks.
Plus
every
every
dependent.
dependent in your household.
Plus-
1,400 for each?
Yes.
Plus,
Yeah,
plus they
serious.
changed the child tax credit. Instead of it being $2,000 tax credit
Yeah.
per child, it's
and that
now
one doesn't come till what,
3,000.
July or something is
Well,
when that one starts.
It comes when you
periodic.
file your taxes,
It's
or
in-
you can get a monthly.
I thought
payment.
it's in payments between December and
July and December. That's what
Or
I
July and
read.
December.
That it starts in July and it's like
I
600
think-
a month.
Isn't it
from
an
July to
opt-in? I think you have to opt in to get it. Otherwise, it's just the same as a tax credit when you file your taxes for 2021. But
I don't know
What I had
a
read
lot
is
about
that
it yet.
so it starts in July. You'll get 600 a month until December, and then you'll get the remainder in your 2022 tax return.
all right, what you spending it on?
Debts, paying off debts.
Sleep,
Yeah.
New bathroom for
Boring.
my property.
Buying a computer
bathroom.
and finishing our basement.
Yeah,
Heroin.
Get a computer so that your company doesn't make you not
So
use
you
a
can
computer.
start contributing, Jake.
Yeah.
Phil,
Well, I currently
I'm
can't
gonna-
even
I'm
plug
gonna
a hard drive into my computer because it won't let me.
I'm going to give you money, Phil, and you can buy me a computer.
I will.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So,
So you guys are 100%, 1,400
Fine.
per
Yeah.
For
family
person.
member.
100%.
Yeah. And
Might even be
dependent
in your bank
under,
account
I
tomorrow.
think it's
That is
in
awesome.
every dependent up under 18 in
Devin.
the household.
It will
But
be
here-
awesome when
here's-
all
here's
that
my
money's
point.
worth nothing on Monday. They're like, oh, sorry, it's $40,000 for a loaf of bread.
Well,
Here's
gas
my
just went
point
up
on
above
this.
3.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Here's the point on this is that me and Phil have kind of talked about this, and Phil's brought it up in other podcasts. I am so against the stimulus check. Like, I hate that the government is doing this. But the second it's in my bank account, like, I'm going to buy a MacBook.
I mean, that's how we
Right.
all
What are you
are. I
going to do?
think.
Give it back?
But the point is, this is what's crazy to me. I'm literally going to be getting a check that's more money than how much I would pay in taxes in a year. So to say that it's coming from taxes, it's crazy. And then this is the conspiracy theorist in me. I swear to you, the reason why they are cluing us in on all this stuff is because they're trying to push through all this other crap, all these
oh yeah,
wish
sure.
list items.
Yeah, like what was like
Now, they got the-
1.5 billion to Amtrak.
Well, that's a drop in the bucket. When you're talking billions at this point.
1.9 trillion, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of money, but yeah, that's the point. Is like they're tacking all this money on, and they're just spending whatever they want. And the sad thing about it is, let's say it does crash horribly, and it's like, oh yeah, all this stimulus money made our economy crash. When it does crash, who are we going to blame?
China.
Blame China. We could blame our politicians, but our
Ourselves.
politicians are going to turn around and say, well, you guys all went out and spent the money. Like,
Right.
And it's on both sides, Republican and Democrat. Republicans are not trying to stop the spending
No.
in any way whatsoever.
And they haven't been
where they
for
lost
decades.
Me. That's where they lost me.
Well, in
Except
the-
for Rand Paul, who's a prophet.
when the bill was first introduced, no Republicans voted for it.
Yeah,
They
that's
voted
true.
for
it was
a
100% party line, wasn't it?
They proposed a like $677 billion stimulus, which had the checks in it.
Yeah.
Just not that much else.
Yeah.
It's like only this needs to be only coronavirus stuff and not everything
Right.
else.
But the
So-
final
I
version
hate
of the bill was
earmarks.
100% party line, right?
Absolutely.
No Republican
Yeah.
voted for
because there
it.
was no
There were like
there
two
was-
Democrats
The
that
only
voted
middle
against
ground
it.
that they ended on was that they didn't put in the $15 minimum wage.
Right, yeah.
That was
Which would have been
and instead of it
devastating.
being an extra $300 a month for unemployment, or instead of extra $400, it was $300
Yeah.
a month.
So let me ask you guys this. This genuinely interests me. Why do they keep calling it Biden's stimulus?
I think he originated it when he was actually in the Senate. Before he became president. I'm serious. Didn't he?
I believe it was originally his idea.
So
yeah.
so my understanding
Was he
is
senator?
back in November.
No, not when he was a senator. It was just his idea,
Oh.
you know.
I was like,
So,
It was
ahead,
something he
Phil. Go
ran
ahead,
on
Phil.
for president.
so my understanding is back in November, Congress does this $600 stimulus, and Trump gets up and says it needs to be 2,000. And so the Democrats say, okay, we'll do 2,000, but then the Republicans don't.
Yep.
So when Biden gets elected, they say, we're now going to do 1,400, which will bring it up to Biden's promise of 2,000.
Or Trump's promise,
But
yeah.
I thought
Right.
it was Trump's promise.
originally, and then they tied on everything else to it. So
I think Biden's been saying it for a
Yeah.
long time as well.
He was saying 2,000.
and pretty
I
much-
don't think he was.
Well,
He
yes,
has been for a
can
very
say-
long
You
time.
can also say, let's say Trump set it at 2,000. And instantly Nancy Pelosi's like, okay, well,
Right.
now we know what number you guys wanted, so let's do it.
Right.
Because they would have done whatever they could have got away with, so to speak.
A lot
at
of them,
that time.
yeah, a lot of them were saying $1,000 per person per month.
Yeah.
you know, for a whole
we
year.
need to do, what's that called? The minimum
Universal basic income, UBI,
which Andrew Yang was really pushing for when he was running for president.
and now he's running for mayor of New York, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Andrew
Pushing
Yang
the same thing, yeah.
So my point is, if Trump was the first one to say we need 2,000, and then they're like continuing that goal, and they're like, we've reached this goal, but it's Biden's stimulus.
So
Isn't
Trump
that
gets
what-
credit.
I'm not so sure he was the first one who's
Trump
saying it.
gets credit for saying, "Well, this isn't enough," and I don't give him credit for saying one thing.
I'm not
He gets
saying
partial
give Trump credit. I'm saying what credit does Biden deserve?
The other $1.2 billion on top of
Well, just
that.
whoever's in office gets the credit for whatever happens from the day they became president on.
Whoever's prettiest.
So
You know what? The other thing too, I honestly think that Trump said that as a not as a joke, but like, well, why don't you give him $2,000?
Yeah,
We make it $6,000 per person. Like trying to make it absurd, and then it was pretty interesting because then all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi and those guys are like, "Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
yeah.
So
AOC.
speaking of Nancy Pelosi, it is Women's History Month.
Oh, there's
Very
a Women's
important.
History Month.
Yes, Women's History Month comes after Black History Month,
Oh, wow.
where it belongs.
Hey, I have a, can I ask
Yes.
a preliminary
History.
question before we get into Women's History Month? And this is going to be something that I guess a lot of people will think is, I don't know, white privilege or male
Racist.
privilege or something of me. But there are like most things just get a day, right? But there's like a few things that get full months. I just have a hard time fully understanding why wasn't there like a Black History Day? Why is that a whole month? Why is there a whole month for women?
there is
instead of just a day?
International Women's Day was last week, so they got
Okay.
that.
Well, what are
day
the other
in
months? Anybody know what the other months are?
No, I
Well,
don't.
I know that every
Just those
other
two.
month-
Ice cream
Every
month.
other month of the year is White Male Day. So
Ice
Yeah.
cream month. Isn't that what it was?
Well,
International
every day
Ice Cream
has something special about it. I think it's some day in March is like National Cheeseburger Day, and we get screwed at work. But yeah,
You guys are actually busy
yeah,
around that
we're
day.
a little bit busier that day just because some people are like, "Oh, it's Cheeseburger Day. I'm hungry, and I don't know how to make decisions." So
If
I'll go
Crystal
eat.
was here, she'd tell you every single thing of every day of the
She
year.
knows them all.
Yeah, donut day, police
Plus all our
officer
birthdays.
day, every birthday.
Yeah, but I don't know at what point.
I got the list here if you guys want to.
Well, have at it. Let's
Months
do a
or
couple-
days?
What's,
So
what's
February,
January?
we know February. That's African American History Month.
Is that what it's called? Is that
It's
what it
now-
says?
I thought it was Black History Month.
Yeah.
They've recently changed it, I think.
Okay.
But according to the Library of Congress, commemorative observances months, the African American History Month is February. November
what's
is
January, though?
American Indian Heritage Month.
Okay.
These
We
are going
took
by-
Thanksgiving away from them,
We'll go by
and
month.
so
we'll go
we're gonna give them that whole month.
by month, right? We'll go by month order. Oh, they get free college that month. Oh wait, no, every day.
Free college every month.
careful.
We'll go by day of the.
Tyler's
the
not even going
month
to
of
be
the
your
year.
friend anymore.
I don't know what the breakdown of that is.
January does not have one. February was Black African American. March is Irish Indian American or Irish American Heritage Month.
So they have to
So-
share that with.
Women's History Month
Women's
is
His-
also March, so they're both.
So we're just like it's not even necessarily anything special.
It just to me,
It's
it
just
feels
dumb, Devin.
It feels more meaningless when you make it a whole month.
okay.
Right.
You know, like you have a day and then you can really focus on that day, on that thing. When you make it a whole 31 days,
So is September National 9/11 month? Because that's all that my mother-in-law watches all month. of
Constitution Day and Citizenship Day are September 17th.
Speaking of
So-
September 11th, you guys, we're all going to Clear Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, except some of you weren't there, but you're welcome to come anyway.
September. When are you going to Clear Creek?
September 11th.
Because we were there 20
Yeah,
years ago.
It's
Well,
the
let's-
20-year
yeah.
anniversary, and
I guess we'll tangent a little bit. Let's talk about where we were on.
We don't
9/11.
have to if you don't want. I was just mentioning it.
Oh, let's go for it.
When did you guys decide this?
Crystal decided that we're gonna sneak in because they're not open on Saturdays.
Yeah. So everybody has, I should say, anybody who was, I don't know, at least 10 years old kind of has a memory of where they were on 9/11. Like when they were 10 years old in 2001, I'd say, right? If you're younger than that, you probably don't remember that much, I guess. And everybody kind of like, where were you?
So if
I want to tell my story because I think it's funny.
Have at it.
Okay, so we were at Clear Creek. Me, Phil, Jake.
I was there too.
And
Yep.
Bolt was, and there's a bunch of other people that were there
It was Cave TV, right?
Yeah.
and the cheer squad.
And cheerleaders.
Yeah. So you were double down there.
They were like, what group of men has the least likely chance
of having
to hook
issues
up with
with
some cheerleaders?
overnight camp with the cheer squad?
And
Let's choose the Cave TV nerds.
So basically, there were two girls that from the cheer squad that came up late. They came up on September 11th at like 8 or 9 o'clock, and they were just bawling their eyes out.
I think it was Amber that we had on the show and Aubrey. I know it was Aubrey. I'm pretty sure Amber was with her.
It did not affect my life at all, so I have no idea. Like, I'm not joking. These two girls came crying, and I'm thinking, oh, somebody ran their crop duster into a freaking building. Like, what's the big deal? And I'm not joking. I was like, the whole rest of the time we were there, I was like, this is stupid. I'm sure it wasn't a big problem. Whatever. And I don't remember, when did we actually come home? 13th?
Yeah, it was a couple days after.
So, but the funny thing to me is it did not impinge on me at all that something bad happened. And then I got home and I started looking at videos, which wasn't easy in 2001, but I started looking at videos online and I was like, oh,
wow, this is a big deal.
Big deal. But it didn't affect me at all for 2 days. Didn't give a crap.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting because, we were at lunch when it was like announced. And I was across from, I don't remember who, but talking to cheerleaders because, I was.
Because that's what he did.
Because that's just what I did all the time. Nope. I had finally got up the courage to start to befriend some of the cheerleaders. And then I just see like the color come out of their face. And they're just like, is this the second coming? Is this in the Bible? Or is this in like Doctrine and Covenants somewhere that the towers will fall or something? And I'm just like, yeah, I think so. We better, live it up.
We better hook up. We gotta hook up tonight.
Yeah, we never know what's gonna happen. And
darn it.
And that went really well.
It went really well. Nothing happened, but it was kind of fun to tease them about it because I was really like, "Are you serious? Sure, let's see how far we can go with this." And they were just so. This is the same girl that I went on a double date with her, and she ran a stop sign, and I said, "Oh, it's okay. The ones that have white around them are optional." And she believed me.
Where have I heard that before?
Anyway,
The white.
all stop signs have white around them.
The white
just
border.
so we're clear.
Yeah, I remember that though. And it was crazy because like you said, you're out there in like the forest and I think everyone like held hands and said a prayer or something. I can't remember, but
I can promise I wasn't there.
But we got back into town and it's like, my parents had it up on the TV, but they weren't watching it. And I was like, how can you guys not be watching this? And they're like, we've been watching it nonstop for 3 days. Like
it's old news now.
Like, yeah.
Price is Right isn't even on.
Yeah.
One of the only times when you probably actually wanted a 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
That maybe hurricanes. I don't know.
That probably actually helped give rise to it because it was like, they're all like, man, we're making tons of money if we just have, if there's something
Huge
to talk about
disasters,
24 hours a day. So
But this is a subject I've actually wanted to bring up because what the 24-hour news cycle now is all the time. Like President Trump could have farted and it would have been on all night long.
You bet.
Like it's just a normal thing. But what was the first incident or 24-hour news cycle thing that happened like 9/11 or like something big that you just got glued to the TV? Like what was the first one you remember in your life that happening to?
When the pandas were born at the zoo. No, I'm just kidding.
probably OJ.
Oh yeah.
What were the Rodney King riots in LA? We lived in California. My parents were super scared. we stayed inside. They talked to us about it.
You are white.
I'm white.
Do you know what year that was?
I don't. It was in the
Early
90s,
90s.
but I don't
90s.
remember the year.
See, and I can't even remember the year that mine was, but the first one I remember watching was the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When was that?
And I have
That was the 80s,
interesting-
wasn't
No,
it?
it was in the 90s.
That was the early 90s too?
My grandpa lived in Oklahoma City when it happened. He was only a mile away, and so his building was like, we thought it was an earthquake when it went off.
Rodney King
Wow.
riots were 92.
Yeah. So I was
Oh.
7.
What was the Oklahoma City bombing?
Was it like 94? I don't know.
We're duck going this
Uh-oh.
via Jake.
Wait, you're spelling it correctly. It's not going to work.
Nope.
Go.
Bombing.
If I type fast, I spell better.
95.
95.
95.
Okay. So I remember I had a TV and I put it in my closet because it was so impinging on me. But I remember certain things from the live telecast that was being reported that later on, and this is one thing that did get me into some conspiracy theory stuff because they were reporting weird things on the live thing. And then later on, they were like, oh, that never happened. We never thought that happened. Like they were talking about finding explosives in the building and that they sent bomb squads in to take care of those explosives. And then you look at the history of it and not reported anywhere that they found explosives, that it was just the rental van full of fertilizer or whatever. And
Yeah.
anyway, it was really interesting to
The Oklahoma one, that's what you're saying?
Oklahoma City bombing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had like memorized to a degree kind of what was happening, or it was just kind of ingrained in your memory, so to speak. And
Because
It
it was
felt like-
honestly, it was kind of traumatic for me because I was pretty little and I was like, oh my gosh, someone would do this. But I remember the first thing they did was they swept the building because they weren't sure if like there were bombs inside or what. And they actually apparently found some explosives or what they thought were explosives. And they called the bomb squad in to handle it. And then you look back on the history of it and like, I can't find anything about that.
well, one of the reasons I wanted to bring up just the history in general is, what would it be like? Do you think if in schools, instead of starting from as far back as you can and working your way forward, if they went the opposite way, where you started at school with kind of current events and go back a decade at a time, and you slowly make the progression backwards, how much more interesting do you think it might be? Or because I guess I often feel like in history class growing up, you talk about what happened hundreds of years ago, and then when you get to April and May, and you finally get into World War II, and if you're lucky, you make it to the 60s.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know, like, and I haven't asked I don't think my daughter's in a lot of history yet. She's in 2nd grade. But I was wondering actually when they would teach September 11th because like I've mentioned it a little bit to her, but it's so recent that like, is she not even going to find out or really learn about it until she's like in college, or how do they do that nowadays? So
Yeah, and so I guess I think it would be really interesting if at least one of the classes you went the opposite route, where you start with what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and just hop a few decades back and go.
I think I like your idea, and I think what needs to happen is Quentin Tarantino needs to come out with his own curriculum where he goes like 5 years ago, and then it jumps to like last month, and then kind of like back to the 60s, and then 500 years ago, and like you kind of piece it all together. And then by the end of the semester, like you get it.
Wouldn't like early Mormon church history by Quentin Tarantino be the awesomest movie ever? Like that would be so fun.
Hans
Honor
Mill.
Reed Party by Quentin Tarantino.
Porter Rockwell, like a bloody machete in his hand, going to find Governor Boggs.
I like the Donner Reed Party. Like the guy's just gnawing on his brother's leg.
It's literally like a 30-minute scene of them actually eating the people.
Right.
That's what Quentin Tarantino would
They
do.
weren't really dead yet.
Why not?
Up next,
Don't worry.
Hobo with the shotgun.
I'm sure Quentin Tarantino will be canceled here pretty soon, though. So
Has he done some racist stuff
always,
or something?
like if you go through and watch videos of like whenever he's being interviewed by black people, he tries to talk black.
Oh, really?
It's so
So he's gonna get in
cringeworthy.
trouble for that,
It's
yeah.
phenomenal. So when you get a chance, check it out because he's like,
It's really
That's
great.
funny.
I didn't even notice what race he was. I thought he was black.
that's true.
You're so colorblind.
Yeah.
Wait, but apparently that's racist too.
So
Being colorblind is-
Oops.
So
Sorry.
even Michael Moore, I guess, has been catching a lot of flack for the latest movie he produced,
Oh.
which is about green energy.
Yeah.
And pretty much the whole concept of the documentary is that like green energy is a crock. Like all these windmill companies and solar companies are the biggest capitalists. Like
From Michael
Sure.
Moore.
from Michael Moore. Yeah.
What's wrong with them being capitalists?
Well,
Well,
that's anti-Michael Moore to
yeah,
a degree.
in his-
he did one called Capitalism: A Love Story, where he
Right.
goes into the evils of capitalism.
So he's not actually trying to say there's anything worse about it than anything else. He's just saying they make money off of being green, and that's bad.
He's actually
To a degree,
So
I
the whole
guess.
point of the documentary, so it's on YouTube and it's called.
It's called Michael Moore catching a cow fart.
Yeah, catching a cow fart. But no, the idea is actually that most of these green companies actually do just as much harm and sometimes worse than like coal or gas companies. And the whole concept is the solution isn't to do green energy. The solution is to limit
Use
the amount
less.
of people, use less stuff, et
You know
cetera,
what?
et cetera.
I never thought that I would say
To go
I kind
vegan?
of agree with that. I
And
kind of want to watch
go
this
vegan. That would probably help better
Yeah,
than limiting cars.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And they were showing how much energy went into making like one windmill, and that after like 20 years, they pretty much had to rebuild the whole thing. And they were talking about all this waste that happens and all this additional energy that goes into making it and how much energy it actually produced. And they're pretty much saying that
Windmills
it
do
just
seem
doesn't-
like a weird one. I mean, you look at the ones in Spanish Fort Canyon.
Yeah.
They just seem like they're doing nothing.
Yeah.
They're half of them are not moving most of the time.
Yeah.
The ones that are moving are super slow. I can't imagine they're producing that much energy.
Apparently,
Well-
a lot of them kill a lot of birds.
Yeah, no, they kill a lot of
think?
birds, but every time that it makes a full cycle, it creates a fair amount. It basically creates.
So what's like the
it
total?
creates every time it goes around, it creates enough energy for one house per day. So that's a fair amount that actually goes.
So
through.
they get like what 2 turns a week or something like that if you watch them. So
Well, I guess they're designed to be there at the end of the canyon for
Like-
when you get the morning and evening
Yeah.
gusts of wind that come through when you have the change in temperature.
be interested
There's
to
a-
see what percentage of Spanish Fork are they owned by Spanish Fork City? Do you
I
guys
don't
know?
know.
No,
I
it's
don't-
private, I believe.
I think
But
it's
I
the
mean,
power
I guess
company.
my question is actually: is the energy they produce going to just Spanish Fork,
Probably.
or is it
Well,
getting
feeds
distributed?
I think it feeds the
power
grid.
Yeah, but
Okay,
Probably
just would
like,
be interested
probably
to
like
see
solar
what-
panels on your roof do. They
Yeah.
go back to the grid.
Yeah, so they have a meter and the grid says,
but
yeah, you
there's
gave us
most
this much.
of this green energy creates DC current
Mm-hmm.
that has to go to a grid to somewhere that turns it into AC current. So DC current doesn't travel as far, and so most of it is going to go to Spanish
Close
Fork, close by area.
Which is why Nikola Tesla was right
Yeah.
the whole time.
No, yeah, he's the one who came up with alternating current. Crazy guy.
I wonder what percentage of the power.
7%.
I got to imagine it's really low. But I don't know.
But yeah, you should watch it. You'll just have to Google Michael Moore green energy documentary.
I can't handle Michael Moore documentaries.
Planet-
to be
Planet
so
of
honest.
it's actually
Humans?
not. He produced it, but
He's not the one
He's not the one
walking
walking
around
around
talking
talking.
to
people.
And the guy that is like just a reasonable, normal dude. So
Michael
That
Moore
makes
caught
it
on
more
that,
enticing.
yeah,
that
It's called
not
Planet
enough
of the
people like
Planet
his
of the
face.
Humans.
yeah. But
Do you guys remember
that's
when?
it, Planet of the Humans.
Do you guys remember when Obama had the Cash for Clunkers
Oh, yeah.
program? I totally on my own like thought process. I'm like, that is the biggest waste ever. Like you're literally telling someone to cash in their 10-year-old vehicle that still has 150,000 miles. They're going to
And have a
basically
new one produced. Yeah.
Yep.
get a new one produced and then go and drive that for 150,000 miles. Why don't you just keep the same one that already has created the damage manufacturing wise and keep it moving? And I think the whole idea was trying to narrow people's viewpoints down to miles per gallon only is the thing that pollutes the earth, which just is not true. You know, you even look at like Tesla and electric powered cars, where do those batteries go when they get rid of them? They're toxic waste at that point.
And the
Well,
power,
they go to the bottom of the ocean. Don't
the
worry
power
about it.
the energy
good.
that powers the battery, that charges the battery.
Right.
And that's actually what they open this documentary up with. They're like, oh, yeah, look at my green car. There's no blah, blah, blah. But they say, well, you're plugged into the grid, and there's the smokestack right there that's charging it. So,
I mean, I do think in general, unless you have solar panels on your roof, there's no point in getting an electric car.
Yeah. And even
Seems like
solar
you're doing
panel-
nothing.
Natural
Even
gas
solar
is like
up, but-
is pretty clean compared to compared to coal.
Better. Yeah, that's true.
Natural gas
It's a lot better
is one of
than
the
gas.
better ones, and so
diesel-
that's what most of
diesel's
Utah
cleaner
County
than-
runs off of.
Yeah,
Diesel
that's
is
true.
cleaner than unleaded fuel that we use.
isn't it interesting that there isn't like a perfect energy? Like
nuclear.
everything has a good side and a serious detriment. Like,
Yeah. No, for sure.
It doesn't matter what you pick.
Isn't that like everything, period? Not just energy?
It's
I guess, like-
Well, I guess to call it clean energy in and of itself is problematic.
But I think the bigger thing is just like no one knows. Like that calculation, like, so should I get rid of my car and have a new car manufactured that's electric or whatever? Like, what's the actual calculation there? Like, which one is doing better?
Do you want the
nobody
breakdown
knows.
of greenhouse emissions that's been done by? So, let's say if you wanted to get to zero emissions, and everybody drove, every single form of transportation was electric.
nuclear.
What percentage of emissions would that cut out worldwide if every single thing was electric?
I don't.
Small percentage. Very
10.
small.
I don't
Well,
know.
it's 28%.
28%.
But is that just taking into account? Is that taking manufacturing
Not
into
yet.
account?
No, I'm saying that's just getting around, whether it's on a ship and an airplane can't do it.
That's just the driving of
With our
electric
current technology,
vehicles.
an airplane can't go more than like 300 miles on electric, and so we're limited. So you would need to use something else.
That's
anyway.
actually a pretty high number, though. Higher than I thought.
Yeah,
it was
but I have
gonna
a question. Is this only man-made pollutants?
yes.
Does this exclude like all other pollutants,
Yes,
like a
this
volcano?
excludes all other pollutants because
And
the Earth has found
Cow farts.
can find equilibrium most of the time. We're just pumping more on average, obviously, and like
Bro,
like
we came from the Earth, bro.
Yeah.
So like, aren't we like part of that, bro? Isn't that like us just equilibrializing?
well, we suck at equilibrium.
I don't know what you're doing right now, to be honest with you.
I've never been
Are you
high,
like in a
but
dentist chair?
I can't tell. Are you like
Blow offs.
surfing? Are you like?
Get rid of the whippet.
I was trying to
No
beat
more
the
whippets.
stoner.
So
It didn't work.
the interesting thing about that is you say if we took it all away, it'd be 28%.
28% of man's contribution
Yes.
to pollution.
But is that taking
Carbon.
into account that if everybody were driving an electric car, there would be so much more output from the grid?
Electricity, which 27% of the other emissions is from producing just electricity,
Just
onto
electricity.
the grid.
Right.
And so if you're able to do more,
But just from not having gasoline burnt in our cars,
yes,
we'd
it's
save 28%.
But that's not just cars, that's trains, that's boats.
That's
That's
everything.
everything. And
Which is never going to, well, not never, but we're a long ways away from electric
the technology's
planes.
there to get, planes. Well, you could use hydrogen, which is clean enough because when it burns, it turns into water. So it doesn't actually add carbon, but you have to
just
produce the hydrogen, which
Just makes the road
in order-
slippery.
And makes you explode.
Yeah, it's more explosive, but like gasoline isn't. So
No, it's not.
Getting me.
I mean, that's literally what is making your car go, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's-
a bunch
Hydrogen,
of
isn't
mini
that what
explosions.
Hindenburg, wasn't that hydrogen?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
also what they're going to use in different rockets and stuff like
Yeah.
that too. So you mix hydrogen and oxygen to make rocket fuel.
All right, do you have more on this list?
Yeah, so 28%
Cow farts is
transportation.
the biggest one, right?
Cow farts is like 3%. No, I'm just kidding. Agriculture overall is 10%.
Oh, so not
So
bad.
that's
Not as big
included
as I
in
thought.
it. But industry, so just making everything is 22%. And then
So there it is, right there. The question I guess we were asking earlier, and Jeff, why would I buy a new car and have a new car manufactured? It sounds like
it's almost a break even. So 28% versus 22%. Like
it's a little bit better to buy the new car that's electric than
if your electricity is in a clean grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. That's what it doesn't take into account is you save the 28% emissions, but it doesn't say how much more emissions we're going to start putting out because everyone's now driving electric cars.
But we're already making
except-
cars all the time, correct? And so instead of making polluting cars, if everyone switch over, so yes.
Well, what I mean is like I have a certain electric bill because I use a certain amount of kilowatt hours.
it's gonna go up.
Your
If
electric
I
bill is
have-
going to go way
Boulter
up.
already
if you have an
addressed
electric
that,
car.
and it is true that burning natural gas is way cleaner than burning gasoline in your car. So even if you're electric,
Oh, you're saying most of the grid is natural gas.
here in
in
Utah,
Utah
it's
County.
almost
Okay.
completely. And
Utah
so
County, if you go south, then you get some coal
Right.
still.
is coal. I don't know what's the
Coal's bad.
It's worse than burning
Yeah.
gasoline.
Plus, yeah, it's worse than burning gasoline.
do you
Plus,
kn-
you get arsenic and stuff like that goes into the air.
Do you
too.
know what percentage of the U.S.?
don't.
I know Utah is mostly natural gas, or most
Yeah.
states mostly natural gas.
Right now, yeah, because of fracking, any new plant that's been made in the past 15 years is natural gas.
So if most our power is natural gas, then we would save switching over. We would not be polluting more by
per se,
producing the
we're
electricity
not,
to power
we're
our
not at
cars.
zero emissions by any measure, but unless you're able to introduce carbon capture technology, which costs a bunch more.
So what's Michael Moore trying to say?
He's saying it's
Google
dumb.
just told us.
So the other thing that's interesting, they were saying that, and I don't know how true this is because I didn't look into it a lot, but they were saying another thing that you hear about is biofuels, like, oh, this clean energy, it's biofuel. And they're showing the plants, they're literally just burning wood. Like they're cutting down trees and forests to burn them to make the cyclone spin or whatever to generate electricity. And even like railroad ties, like creosote soaked railroad ties, they were dumping into this thing.
That counts as bio.
That's a biofuel.
What
mass?
percentage? What's actually being run on biofuel? Is that like a big? That's
they
not a
claim-
big industry.
They showed a map and it showed that there were 2 of them in Utah. So I don't know. Like they were all over the country. But that's
There's 2 kinds of biofuel. You have the biomass that they burn,
Right.
or when you're trying to create ethanol.
yeah. And
so-
maybe biomass is the right term they were
because
saying.
every time that you grow something, you create biomass,
Right.
And so you either burn it to get rid of it, and then get.
Here's what I was going to say about it. I kind of said this already, but the calculation is like too big. I feel like of a calculation. It's too big of a calculation for the average person to make. In my opinion, at least, I think what most people need is they need to be able to trust science and the government again, and for someone to make it easy for them. Nobody has the time to sit down and weigh out manufacturing costs versus wind versus nuclear, and like which one ends. And then you see all these things on the internet that seem to contradict each other.
Yeah, humans aren't built for large or all-encompassing thought. Like you said, it's too big of a calculation. We think what we personally see, and people we know and trust what they see and tell us. And so if you trust an anchor, if you like Don Lemon or, Rush Limbaugh, if you trust that person and you go off of what they're saying, then that's your information. That becomes your worldview. So part of, I think, why they were doing Cash for Clunkers was trying to make it real for everyone. It wasn't actually that helpful per se. It was just more of an awareness.
It is a very tangible step, that's for sure.
It was hey, if you turn this in, it'll help save the planet. It really wasn't, but if it got the ball rolling on people thinking about what actually can save the planet, and maybe that was more of the goal.
That might be the case with windmills as well. They might not be the best solution, as you're pointing out, Phil, but they're probably a step in the right direction. They'll get more efficient and better over time, or we'll just come up with something that's altogether better that replaces it.
Yeah, the
It probably is
problem
a
I
step.
have with them, though, is say they're super efficient. Part of why they're so efficient is because they're built so well. Well, what about when they hit their 20-year life cycle and they're supposed to be replaced? What do you do with them?
Yeah, I don't know, but that'll be maybe part of the process. We'll figure out
But
better ways to build them that make them more recyclable, or
but
they
as it
break
is
down
now,
slower.
because they have to build them with such strong material to last those 20 years.
There's nothing they can
They
do.
don't know how to properly get rid of it right now.
Yeah, there's no disposal recycle process. They just
And so-
literally just sit there.
Yeah, it's like a 70-foot
landfill.
fin that weighs like 80 tons or something
Made
like
out of
that.
this
It's like
super durable material that can't be chopped up easily into little
Right.
bits, and so it works great for 20 years, and now you're right back to you got to make it all over again.
And now
pump
it's
all-
just like
yeah.
landfills
Yeah.
and
yeah, or just like fields, and that's what they were showing. It's just like fields of dead windmills or dead whatever, like or solar fields they were showing, or where they came in, cut down all the trees, mowed all the grass, put the solar field in, and then they came and took all the solar field out, and it's like a wasteland now of
Yeah.
just dirt and dust.
So then, are you more for nuclear energy?
Nuclear is my favorite, but I think I kind of agree with the concept of this documentary, which none of that is really the answer. Like we're looking in the wrong place. Like we're looking for this energy to save us when it's really our behavior that needs to change to.
Here's the thing. That's like saying we all need to stop being such fat asses.
Yeah.
And it's going great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, we could make healthy food and everything,
Can we?
but really.
Can we make it cheap?
But the problem is people still need to change their behavior.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's
it's,
kind of the point I was trying to make earlier is it's too much. So like you're going to ask people to, to be perfectly efficient in all aspects of their life. Like they need to make the right calculations on what kind of energy to use. They need to recycle perfectly. They need to buy less stuff. They need to like compost. They need to do everything. It's too much for every person to do.
Well,
There needs to be better systems in place because people can't do all
you don't
of
even
those
believe in
things.
recycling, Phil.
I don't believe in recycling, but the problem is right now is how socially how our lives are geared. We're on the track to consume more energy.
Yeah.
Like we consume more data, more devices, more electronics, like, and that's compounding and continuing. Like that's also an issue, like that we're not even looking at. We're like, oh yeah, well, we've got all these data centers now because we track everything everyone does, and the iPhone listens to you wherever you go, and it's really cool because it knows exactly what I want to buy. But like, what's the environmental cost of those conveniences in our lives? Like,
Hyperconsumption.
right, all the consumption, all the technology, like, is that not a huge part of the
You're sounding
problem?
anti-capitalist, Phil.
I'm cool capitalist. I'm anti
Globalization.
anti-globalization.
You're like, people should be able to be capitalists and produce all of the things, and then no one should buy them.
I think that I think if
No one should want to buy all the things.
I
that
think people
capitalism
that say the answer is get more solar panels, I think probably virtually no matter who that person is, they're hypocritical because there are people who say, oh, we need to have more green energy, but they're driving to work instead of riding their bike. They're, and I'm not saying
But if they have a full, their entire roof is a solar panel, and they're 100% solar energy for their house, and they drive an electric car, is that really being hypocritical?
well, yeah, because there's no such thing. Nobody's 100%.
No, there are.
There's good, better, and best, right?
And there are plenty of people who their entire house is 100% solar efficient.
Right. And if that's true, they're replacing like 20 batteries, huge batteries, like every 2 years, which is
I don't know how long those big
which is a
Tesla
huge-
wall batteries last. I don't think it's 2 years, though. I think it's a lot more than 2 years.
Let's say it's 10 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know it's not very long. It's like your car battery, essentially. Like it doesn't last forever.
Let's
So
find out, Phil.
find out how long they last.
They
but-
probably haven't reached their life yet because they've only been out.
But yeah, the
years.
overwhelming majority of everyone, all these companies that claim to be all solar, people who claim to be all solar, the majority of them, unless they're an off-grid situation, are obviously hooked up to the grid, and that is subsidizing their power. I think there's very few people who are 100% off-grid who are actually getting
Yeah.
enough solar to charge
Well,
a car.
So I would agree that there's no such thing as clean energy.
Right.
There's cleaner,
Right.
and maybe, but that's not
But I'm
exciting.
not sure how that's hypocritical. Like doing better than everybody
Yeah.
else is doing.
Yeah, and so
I
that's,
just,
that's where I'm
hypocritical.
like, because if you
That is
take
a good
your
thing in
route
and of
where it's
itself.
like, well, they're just lying to us to make money, they're helping a little bit along the way.
By the way,
That's-
the Tesla wall batteries are 3 to 10 years. I don't know why there's such a
That's a huge range.
range, and maybe how you use it.
Probably how heavily it's used.
Yeah.
So if it's
Cycles,
if it's
how many cycles you use
exclusive,
it.
I imagine it's going to be like if they are off grid, it's going to be toward the beginning of that. And those things are freaking expensive.
They are very
And
expensive.
They're so shiny.
But also it's the cost analysis. Like you're saying, oh, they've got to use those things, and so they're being hypocritical. But you don't actually know which one is better or worse for the environment.
I'm saying that I'm confident that no matter which one is better or worse, it's not significant
good
enough to
enough.
worry about, because the overwhelming problem is the way that we consume and the rate at which we're
so
reproducing.
what would be clean energy?
Just go back to caveman days and.
That's
Well,
what you
not
actually
good.
think we should do.
So, well, one of the biggest problems right now is where everyone lives. If you could get everyone to migrate to where you
Where
don't
you
have
live
to.
is a big problem, I'll admit.
Well, so like
Looking around,
So
it's,
not so
it's a
many
problem.
people in Arizona.
Arizona, Las Vegas, Utah. I mean, we're using ton of energy in the winter, ton in the summer because it's extremes. If everyone lived in a moderate enough climate where you didn't have to heat or cool
California's
your home,
already so crowded.
well, there's a lot of area of California that's not used at all. But and obviously it's not a
But
great.
it's too hot sometimes, it's too cold sometimes. So
Right.
there's very few places where you don't.
Well, it pretty much be like we all have to move to Mexico kind of thing.
Or Hawaii,
and just
or-
get used to sweating all the time. Like,
But
we're not going
And
to.
then people would just be paying a lot of money for AC because they don't want to sweat.
And that, in a nutshell, is what it really is. It's like, oh, we could do this, we could do this. But the real solutions, we're not going to do them. So it's like, to me, it's kind of like a waste of time. It's not a waste of time to talk about, but I don't think anybody is really serious about tackling
some people
the
are, but
problem.
not the majority. The people who
Right.
are touting, and I would agree that the people that are touting solar, wind as the solutions, like they're stopgaps probably. Like they're just ways for us to slow, the amount of carbon going out. But
Yeah.
no matter
But
what we're doing,
I do
but-
think there still are steps in the right direction. I
Yeah.
mean, solar. So Tesla has a full solar roof now, which they claim for a lot of houses can provide 100% of the energy needed for that house.
How do you make solar panels?
You want me to explain
Yeah,
the
go for
whole
it.
process,
Absolutely.
start to finish?
I want to find out.
I don't know. Neither.
So
Nobody here knows.
so in this
but-
documentary,
you kill 7 Chinese people along the way.
Yeah.
That's not the point, though. The point is, so that's a step in the right direction, and
Yeah.
those will get even more efficient. And now they're starting to make windows that are also, looks like a totally normal window, but it's gathering a
Yeah.
way lower percentage, but some amount of power coming through the window. So we keep doing things like that. Eventually, everything is a solar panel. We don't need solar farms at some point in the future, right? Because everything's a solar panel.
So in this documentary, it's interesting you brought that up because they say how they make solar panels is like with a lot of quartz, and you need extremely high heat to melt the quartz, and that means an extreme amount of energy. And what they're insinuating is it actually takes more energy to make a solar panel than it will ever produce in its lifetime.
Yeah, to hit high energies, high temperatures is really difficult off of just electrical. Like you have to burn.
Right. They're
You
saying
have
they're
coke,
saying it's
which
pretty
is
much
baked
all
coke.
coal.
You just
They
have to-
actually
you
made
just-
the claim that we ran the analysis and you waste more energy building solar panels than you save.
That's what
they
they're
actually say. Here's the numbers.
Now they don't say like put any data out, and I haven't like verified that, but that's what they're insinuating is look, you have to use coal to get it hot enough
Yeah.
to melt the quartz in the first place.
And the amount of coal it takes to make solar panels outweighs all of the other coal being burned across the world.
no,
for the
just how-
carbon
just it costs more emissions. It costs more energy, is what they're saying, to make the solar panel than the solar panel will actually produce in its lifetime, because they're saying that solar panels themselves last at the most 10 to 20 years.
Some will last 30 years.
Yeah,
But let's say 20 on average.
right. So, and
interesting.
again, that's just the insinuation. It's a really interesting documentary. I'm not saying everything in it is true.
You did.
But-
you said that at least twice during this.
And the numbers Boulter just gave us a little bit ago contradict that because it was showing manufacturing numbers versus the numbers, the amount you save in like people switching the cars.
But we're just talking about one single aspect. So we don't know.
Well, so yeah, because
we don't know how much of that
on
manufacturing.
on this chart, electricity and industry, you could draw from both of them when you're making it, probably, if possibly, depending on how they break down the numbers, it could be like, okay, the electricity that goes to the factory to make it might be part of that pie. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if we cut all solar panel production worldwide, how much of that manufacturing pie would shrink.
Well, and what's also interesting, like I do think nuclear is probably the best option.
I agree.
Because without nuclear, there would have already been 20% more emissions throughout the world, even though nuclear only takes up like 5% globally of like the electricity. So it's already showing like it has the least carbon emissions out of anything. It pollutes.
Well, it's zero carbon emissions, right?
You have to build it.
Right, you have to, exactly.
But yeah, once it's up and running and attached to the grid, yeah, it's probably zero, close to it.
And that's the interesting thing is a nuclear plant produces like way more than everything else, than a coal plant, than a wind farm, than anything. Like it's like crazy amount.
Yeah, so I wish there was more research into making more compact. Part of it why is because it costs so much to build. They're like, we're just going to make this big so it puts out a whole lot of megawatts or whatever it is.
Right.
1.21 gigawatts. In order for it to be justified. But there's a lot of smaller reactor concepts that are out there that would, take the place of the windmills at the beginning of Spanish Fork Canyon. So they're just smaller and contain more, and they're actually based off of thorium reaction. Anyway, that gets really complicated rather than uranium or plutonium. And thorium is way more stable, and you can't have an actual meltdown with thorium because if the radioactive rods, if you just basically stop sending, like watching them similar to, so what happened with like the Fukushima incident was water got into the diesel generators that are there to cool the rods so that they don't melt. And so it was a problem on top of problem, which could have been fixed. But if that same thing happened in a thorium reactor, all the dangerous reactants would just fall into a salt bath and then they just stay there and destabilize. So it's a lot safer, but we don't do it because we like nuclear weapons.
Because.
Yeah, and so just to produce uranium, the infrastructure is already there to produce uranium so that we could have nuclear weapons. And so there's no infrastructure right now to refine thorium in enough capacity to really make it work.
So why isn't there
Well,
a
we should do
big
it.
government push to like destigmatize nuclear?
I do wish, because nuclear gets such a bad rap with like Chernobyl incident, Fukushima incident. Was it 3 Mile Island in New York? Anyway, I don't know.
I brought it up a long time ago, but I brought it up with some family members and almost to a person amongst the older group, 40 plus kind of group. They all acted like it was just obvious that solar was that nuclear was a terrible idea. It was dangerous. They know so many people who worked at or near nuclear power plants who died of cancer, blah, blah, blah. And it was like to a person, every single one of them was like, no, you can't do nuclear. That's terrible. And I don't know if that is universal, but
It's not universal because
Well, they remember Chernobyl too, and
Yeah,
that
but
whole thing.
Fukushima was.
I don't have the
but
numbers.
almost
in front
every
of me,
single one
but-
of them were claiming they knew somebody who had, worked near a nuclear power plant, worked in a nuclear power plant, and they all died of cancer, every single one of them. And so they just are terrified of nuclear, and they think it's a
Well, and I guess I'm the
terrible
opposite
idea.
because my dad, he grew up in Moab where there are the uranium mines, and he went and played in them. Like he went and just walked around in the uranium mines, and still had 6 kids somehow. So
It's like us playing around in Geneva Steel, and it's
we
like
didn't do that.
radioactive past this door. We're like, everyone hold your breath.
It was never radioactive, but there was a door that
Biohazardous.
said asbestos, warning
Oh,
asbestos.
asbestos, that's right.
And we all looked at each other and like smiled.
We're like, no.
And like covered our mouths
Not a
and
big
ran
deal.
inside. We just like ran around.
All right, so
like,
confession time. What we're
holding our
talking about
breath.
is bring it back to Geneva Steel, which we first talked about earlier in the episode, was a plant that was a big part of Utah County, provided a bunch of jobs and a bunch of pollution, and made it so that when I was a kid, I remember there were several days where we weren't allowed to go outside and play in recess because the air quality was so bad because of Geneva Steel. And when did it close down? Was it in like while we were in high school? Was
2001,
it
I
2000?
think.
It slowly shut down.
Yeah,
but,
like-
parts of it over time.
Yeah, steel started losing its value, and eventually, and that's a whole thing that basically China caused the steel industry to collapse because they were undervaluing it and so on until enough Other companies crashed around the world that then they just bought it all up, and now they're making bank off of steel.
But certainly by high school, pretty much the majority of Geneva had shut down.
So it had shut down, and then it's right after high school, and we're bored, and we decide, sure, let's go trespass. Why not?
We didn't say trespass. We meant to say
We just said, let's go
we just
explore
were
Geneva
walking
Steel.
out.
we just wandered into this big steel museum.
We heard a baby crying. I think we heard a baby crying on the inside, and we had to go check it and make sure the baby was
we
okay.
had to find that baby in there.
Yeah.
Never found
But
it.
that was a freaky place. And there was yellow cake on the floor.
That was there.
Nuclear yellow cake.
Oh.
In that room that we were just talking about.
What is the?
No.
Wasn't there a weird room? So we went into one of the buildings where there was this oddly shaped table, right? Wasn't it shaped like a coffin or something?
table? Yeah.
What was written on the?
Where,
The
Drac-
We can't. It's not time for that.
where Dracula's
back later.
giant was.
We'll,
I think we should have an episode.
Reveal that in a
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have an episode dedicated to Geneva
Okay.
mysteries.
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
And
I don't think now's the time.
how we lost our friend Thomas there. One.
To a homeless
We
guy.
don't talk about him anymore.
Yeah.
So Women's History Month.
Yeah.
I like the tangents we're going
which is
off of.
completely overshadowing Irish American heritage.
Yeah,
Month,
it is unfair
which
that it
is
has
also
to be
in
shared.
March.
There are a lot more women
And that's
than
fair
Irish.
enough.
So
just one, I guess, quote that came across when I was just looking for it was from Eleanor Roosevelt. Everyone know who Eleanor Roosevelt was?
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Keep going.
not the same.
So she has a quote, which I later found out, is attributed to her, but she wasn't the first one to say it. But she's the most famous one probably to say it was, so great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people / gossip. How true do you agree with that statement?
That's a pretty good statement, isn't it?
So what do we discuss
Which
most
one
of the
are we?
time?
I don't think we're gossipers quite as much.
Say it one more
Okay,
time.
so like great minds discuss ideas. So like concepts or ideas. Average minds discuss events. I think we do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And we talk about what's happening currently.
Average. Yeah.
And then small minds discuss people, like what's going on with people and gossip.
I would
Our
say
whole
some of
conversation
that,
about
too.
energy right now
would
was
say
an ideas
above,
conversation.
above average.
Yeah, we slip in and out of all those.
Yeah.
But I think we are trying more often to discuss ideas and do deep dives. But I guess what really stuck with me is how shallow is thought becoming generally? Like, take an example like TikTok. How long are TikTok segments on average? I don't know.
1 minute.
I'm not on it.
Oh, you're not on it anymore.
Up to a minute.
Who was on it before? And somebody's wife
Mike
caught him.
likes it.
into it.
Mike's into
He doesn't
Yeah, that
really
was
care
me
about.
who
okay.
I got it, and then my wife was like,
like,
"What are you looking
that's
at?"
just naked girls or
Jeff's
whatever. On it.
Naked 14-year-old
Jeff's
girls, and I was like,
daughter.
"Oh, I guess I'll delete it."
Oh yeah, and Jeff's daughter was on it a lot, and
And Chinese government.
yeah.
Who owns it?
I'm on YouTube a lot, so there's a big variation in there. Like sometimes I'm watching a 45-minute documentary off of it, and sometimes I'm watching a 30-second clip where a dad got hit in the balls by a baseball from his kid, or something like that. But as time goes on, I feel like, are we gravitating more towards just the shallow content and what is as quick as possible entertains us? Also, when it comes to things like Twitter, how often do people discuss the deep dives of things, or they're just like instant, this is my gut reaction and that's all I'm ever going to have about this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I feel like we're actually doing both at the same time. I think we are simultaneously moving towards longer form, more deep dive conversations and more of them, and towards shorter clips
As a society.
and we're getting less of in the middle. So you go back into the 90s and you had like everybody watched the news, but the news
Or the
wasn't
same
giving
TV shows.
the same TV shows, but you weren't getting deep dives off any of those things. You were still getting these short little clips on the news, right?
Yeah.
Today, a lot of people are listening to like 3-hour-long interview podcasts.
Yeah. Awesome podcasts like
Really,
this one.
really interesting stuff where they're getting a lot of information. They're deep diving into a topic.
Like
but you
bidets.
also like bidets, whatever it is that you're interested in. But then there's the stuff like TikTok as well that's more prevalent and available that are just really short, quick hits. So I feel like it's like with everything in today's society, we are just moving to having two like polar opposite extremes and very little in the middle.
It is. I mean, it's an interesting dichotomy because there is a lot of really good information that you can squeeze into, say, a TikTok video. Like, one of the guys that I follow on TikTok he does knots, like rope knots. And it's just a 30-second clip of here's how you tie this certain type of
How many knots
bowline.
have you learned?
Many. There are a lot of knots that this guy does. But I mean, you can squeeze some great content into very short, amount of time.
Yeah. It doesn't just have to be like I'm lip syncing this song or this clip from this movie, which I feel like is a huge percentage of these short clips on the internet these days.
Well, so Tyler brought up that he feels like for health and wellness, there's kind of three pillars. There's the mental health, did he say emotional health and spiritual health? Were those the three?
I think physical should be in there as well.
That's
if he
right,
didn't say
physical.
It.
So he said physical, spiritual, and I think emotional. Which maybe there's more in that. Like is there a different? I feel there is a difference between mental health and emotional health, and I think emotionally we're becoming more shallow. I think we have to be entertained real fast, or if we get upset real fast, everyone else also has to be upset with us and have that, like we aren't able to pause and really, I guess, meditate on what our emotions we're actually having a lot of the time. Maybe quarantine changed that.
Short-tempered.
Too much emotion is just fed to us in the first place. Like, it's not like, hey, this happened today. It's like, this is how you should feel about this thing that happened.
It's not even this is how you should feel. It's like, get ready for what you should be angry about next.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what we should be angry about today.
Yeah, and I also feel like a lot of stuff I watch on YouTube, everybody's like, I love you. I love you, viewers. You're so special to me. And it really is lessening the effect of the word I love you, where you don't know me. Where you say you love me. And
so long time ago, I don't know how long ago, 7 years ago or so, I took a trip, and part of that trip we went to Russia.
Yeah.
And spent a little bit of time in Moscow. And I only was in Moscow, no other part of Russia. But anyways, the point is, everybody looks so grumpy over there. No one's smiling. Everyone looks unhappy. And we ended up meeting this guy. We got lost, and this guy was actually friendly and giving us directions and hung out with us for a while. And we ended up asking him, like, why? Like, is it just like a miserable place here? Like, everyone just seems so unhappy all the time. And he said, and I don't know if this is universal or just this guy's opinion, but he said that people think that in the U.S., people in Russia think that people in the U.S. are fake, and they're smiling all the time to be fake, and it's because they don't trust each other enough to actually be open with each other about what their true feelings are at the time. And in Russia, they feel like we need to respect each other enough to show each other what our true emotions are and beyond. Like, we don't have to put on a fake smile all the time.
But they also live in Russia.
Trust each other to be depressed all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just thought it was an interesting concept. Again, I don't know if it's real or not, but there is something to like just being fake all the time, putting on a smile, saying "I love you, listeners," when like that's actually a meaningless statement, right?
That's in the same vein of, I guess, I don't know, Keeping Up with the Joneses, where you want to let everyone know how good you're doing compared to everyone else. Russia doesn't have that as much.
Shout out to our one Russia listener.
Yeah,
we love you, listeners.
Do we have one Russian listener?
What? Oh, maybe it was Romania.
We have a Romanian and a German next time.
German. That was
the last time I checked.
Sorry.
And those were only one
insulting you.
click each, so I think they were like accident. Like,
Or VPN.
Yeah.
They're probably from American Fork.
Yeah.
It's probably Mike.
They literally are trying to get like foreign country Netflix, and they forgot to switch back when they listened to our podcast.
Das Vidanya. So I guess with that, when was the first time you guys said "I love you" to your significant other?
The first time?
Yeah.
I was in high school, probably.
Yeah.
My wife and I were dating, and she told me, "No, you don't. You don't know what love is."
Was she right?
Yeah, because she was still angry about a previous girlfriend I had that I told that to. And she was mad and thought I didn't know that I did when I said that. And so she was still mad and said, you don't know what that means. And to a large extent, she was right. I was a teenager, but that's how that shook down.
Yeah. And yeah, she's probably right. And
Yeah.
You were a white teenage dude, so you didn't know what love was.
Yeah. White teenage dude.
do-
But yeah, we were just talking about this the other night. Like, even when we got married, we loved each other, but we didn't understand love.
love grows
Yeah.
and evolves into as actually being in love with someone, that people are, to a degree getting that stuff out of the way first. And
Having sex first.
sure. I mean, that's a deeper topic I guess we could get into. I don't want to get into too much of a tangent on that, but anybody else want to share when they said, I love you?
I know it did take me quite a while to say it. But I don't remember how long into the relationship it was, but I do remember distinctly that it was when I knew that I felt.
Did you say it first or did she?
Uh-oh. You're in trouble.
I'm busted.
It couldn't have been that long because you guys were engaged. How long after your first date?
We no, we met mid-September 2006, and we got engaged February 2007,
Oh, okay.
How long
then
after the first
6
date?
months.
and we got married a year after we met.
So that's actually 6 months in. Is that right? Did I do my math right there?
5, yeah.
5 months in, you were engaged.
Oh, first
You were
date.
supposed to.
Okay.
You were
I
supposed
was-
to wait until March, which is Women's History Month.
I should have waited because she
Would have been so
but
much
she doesn't
more
have
special for
Irish
her.
blood in her. So. No, but I think I probably said it. I don't know if I said it first, but I first said it when I realized that I wanted to, spend the rest. I couldn't spend the rest of my life without her,
Yeah, that's sweet.
Cute.
and that's still true. I love you,
This
Stacy.
is such
It would
a
have been
cute
funny if you would have said the
podcast.
opposite. This is not
I-
true anymore.
Yeah.
I could do without it.
Things are a little shaky.
I love
right
you
now.
so much, Stacy.
For me, I said it too early into our relationship. It was only like a few weeks in,
And you regret it.
and because I said the phrase "I love ya," which is not
That's totally
correct. That is not the way you're supposed to.
That's
say
totally
it.
different.
Yeah.
But because I think I was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to say I love you right now," but it came out "I love you." I'm like, "Nope, I guess it's
Dang
not."
it. Shoot.
So and she's like, "That's okay," and she just patted me on the face, said, "You'll get there."
Good boy.
And so, and I don't remember the exact time I said it after that, but that part stuck in my head. But I do know I think I was the first one to say it because I really wanted her to stick around forever.
And you said it wrong.
Yeah, I said it wrong the first time. Can you remember, Devin?
Yep. I was the first one to say it. Third date.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why do you felt you said it so early on?
Because I felt it in my bones. I
Which
got
bones?
married, all of them.
All the bones.
Yep, every bone. There was one
Every
that
bone but one.
there was one that was feeling it
Clavicle.
harder than the other.
It was the clavicle.
Yeah, it was the clavicle.
The weenus? The elbow?
I got married a lot later than you guys
Yeah.
did. So I had dated, and I just feel like for me, I knew the difference between, at that point in my life, I knew the difference between, like, I could date a girl and just know, this isn't going anywhere. And I met Lindsay, and I just knew,
She was the special one.
yeah, that she was the one, and that's what I wanted. And
Yeah.
so I didn't need to date her for a long time to figure that out. And we ended up, we didn't get married until, I don't know, almost 2 years after that. So we waited a long time to actually get married, but
Before your wedding that we went to.
nobody came to my wedding, Jake. Just me and my wife.
I was there in
that was
spirit.
That was Beagle. They got married before his wedding.
Yeah, that was Beagle, not me.
I was at Devin, so as a spirit.
You did some astral projection.
Yes.
Okay.
how
Cool.
it
Well,
works.
thank you for coming.
It was right by.
What did you give him as a wedding
It
gift?
was by the Salt Lake. How would I know that otherwise?
Yeah, well,
Probably the pictures and talking to me and
And the fact that he told us.
yeah.
No,
What do you-
he's
all
never
those
told
things.
us.
what do you want for a wedding gift? I don't think I ever gave you one. Maybe I did. I don't know.
Well, you guys all got me a group gift.
Okay.
I don't know if you contributed on that or not, but
you always, anytime that it was brought up, I'm sure I contributed.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
we got a bunch of camping gear.
Oh, that's what we
from
got
you
too.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a queen size sleeping bag, double sleeping bag, whatever. A really nice tent, which we still have and use all the time. Pad, lights,
Nice.
bunch of stuff. It was
Let's
good
go
stuff.
camping up American Fork Canyon,
Okay.
where it all began.
Before September.
Actually, right now is a good time to go because
Most of the
no
people
one's
aren't up
there.
It's chilly still.
Because it's freaking
And
cold.
it's covered
Yeah.
in
There was
snow.
one cool hike that I
mud.
wanted to do. Apparently, somebody up by the Silver Lake put an Excalibur like into the stone at the top of the mountain,
I saw a news article about that.
and so and I don't know. It'd be
At the top of Timp?
no above Silver Lake Flats. So
Okay.
whatever the highest point is above there, they somehow lugged up like concrete and then
Like a
it's an
anvil
actual Excalibur like blade
in an anvil.
that's like in an anvil, but it's like in the stone, and they buried it, and so you can try to pull it out. And but I don't know. It's just I think a
Are
cool.
you the king if you pull it out?
Absolutely. Of what?
The king of American Fort.
I'm gonna
American Fork
Canyon.
Canyon. You get to live in Timp Cave.
get a helicopter.
You're mayor after that.
I'm gonna go up there and get injured. Call Life Flight, and then when they pull the cable down, I'm gonna
Tie it
tie it to the
sword.
to the sword.
And then the
And
helicopter
crash
becomes the
that
mayor.
helicopter.
So whoever is
But
flying
I'll
the
be
helicopter.
holding the thing, the sword.
Jake
Let's
will
do
be
it.
like floating in
Like
the air
this,
from a sword.
freaking
attached to a
Excalibur
helicopter.
in my hand.
We can do this one next week. This is in the vein of cancel culture, though it's not actually
Okay.
cancel culture. So did everybody hear about Prince Harry and
The Oprah.
I can't remember her
Markle.
name.
The Oprah
yeah.
interview.
Meghan
yeah.
Markle and the interview with Oprah.
Yeah.
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 I heard the after. Didn't hear the interview. A lot of the aftermath though.
I
Yeah.
just the highlights. I
Yeah,
saw the
I
highlights
didn't
for it.
actually watch the interview. I watched clips or whatever.
I
but-
heard it was more or less like a pity party of
Yeah.
like, oh, we're so rich and
Well,
we-
Well,
they're so mean to us.
you could take it that way if you want. I mean,
they did not actually say "poor us, we're so rich."
Right. But I mean, I meant to say like these super rich royalty people are complaining that like they were snubbed by
mistreated.
royalty.
well, and not that they were snubbed. It's nothing about money. It's all about her saying that people were racist against her. Comments about what's going to happen if your baby comes out and is dark skinned. And she's claiming that she said she was feeling suicidal and depressed and all these things. And she asked for help from the royal family. And they said, that will look bad. So deal with it on your own.
so you
But
just want
isn't-
our thoughts on.
Isn't she
So-
like rich independently?
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was a millionaire before as an actress.
So she
not-
could like hire a shrink or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yep.
But
Therapist.
Yep. Good.
Like,
it could
oh.
also be she was just trying to reach out to her new family and say, "Hey, help me out here." Like she was
Yeah.
trying to create a connection, and they're like,
You make me
Do you
feel bad."
understand what it means to be a royal and British?
Yeah.
we don't talk about feelings ever.
Yeah.
They aren't even allowed to like show public display of affection at all. Like when you are the heir to the throne. So who's the heir? The older brother. What's his name?
Well, I thought it's technically his dad.
Well, yeah. So it's that I should say, but the dad's probably going to die before Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, he has
does.
an older brother, Charles, or his
Charles?
dad, Charles. I don't remember.
Charles is the dad.
Charles is the dad. Yeah, he has
So
a brother. I don't
Prince
remember his older
and
brother's
his
name.
wife. What's her
Kate.
name? Kate. Yeah. So they, every now and then he'll try to hold her hand, and she has to like swat it away.
Harry.
a la-
Okay.
No, Harry's
You know,
the
very-
younger brother.
very Trump and
Harry
The
Melania
one
is-
that we're
style.
talking about.
because they're not supposed to publicly show any like affection. So
Yeah.
there's these weird rules, and they're so intertwined in how they interact with each other that having normal emotions isn't a thing
Yeah.
for them. Like,
And isn't the moral of the story that in 2021 there shouldn't be monarchies?
Sure.
Like, how dumb are British people?
well, Americans shouldn't try to get involved in monarchies. You have
Yeah.
lots of tradition that country's proud of and that people are trying to follow. which we can obviously, as one of the more modern societies, for probably hundreds of years, we've been like, oh, these stupid monarchs doing it all these things old fashioned. Why don't they just, be modern like us?
It's William. I knew it.
Megan,
Should've said
what's her
something.
face? Should have
William's the
thrown.
older brother or the dad?
The older brother.
Okay.
So William and Kate
Yeah.
are the
Megan, whatever, should have like got really drunk and embarrassed them all.
yeah.
Said like, this is how Americans do it.
Well, that's what she's trying to do now, is kind of bring light to it. And
Yeah, the biggest thing I agree with your sentiment, Phil. Even though they didn't talk about money or anything like that, so I think you're being a little extreme. But she decided to marry a prince. She should have known. It wasn't that hard to figure out. Like, you're marrying into a royal family with a bunch of weird, outdated, stringent rules.
It's going to be a shift to the way that you've lived your life.
Yeah,
thus far.
and not that makes it okay. Like, if you say I'm suicidal and your family says deal with it on your own because that's embarrassing for us. If that is true, I mean, that's sad, and that's reason to be pissed at your family. But to go have an interview with Oprah and complain about it on TV to everybody when you knew
signed up for it.
what you signed up for seems a little whiny to me. But
Yeah, and it just seems like kind of a screw you. Like,
Sure.
well, we're gonna embarrass you then if you're not gonna give us. I'm not insinuating that like that's what went down. Like, oh, we're not gonna give you some money if you don't do this, or I don't know.
Well,
Didn't they
when
like leave the
when they
leave the
walked-
throne or whatever?
and when they
they
walked
called it?
away, they got what, like, it was $14 billion or something.
is that, I don't know if it's
I
much,
don't
but
know.
I thought it was like $40
$14 million.
million.
Let's say,
Yeah.
that sounds
Some super high number though that they walked away with, and now they live like somewhere close to Oprah in a multi-million-dollar
like
mansion in
LA.
Southern California.
and all they do is charity
somewhere.
work, which is what they want to do. So
Yeah.
that's good for them. But it's also doing charity work. You're still just doing what you want to do, just as much for you as it is for the people you're doing the charity for, in my opinion.
And why aren't British people pissed that like
They are.
Oh, these people are leaving, and we just paid them $40 million of our tax
did
money.
Pierce Morgan
Yeah, that's
get
why
fired,
I wanted to
or
get
did he quit?
to
or-
that because of cancel culture. He got let go from his own show because he had a guest on to talk about it, and Piers Morgan, I guess, hates Meghan Markle and thinks,
Okay.
or maybe hates, I don't know, but he has been very open about thinking she's like a crybaby and a liar. He thinks she's lying about most of these claims that she's making. And he's having this debate with this guy on his show, some British guy. And the British guy's like calling him out, kind of. I don't know.
Didn't he say something to the effect of like, well, I've had a similar experience to that where, my coworkers, because he's a person of color, wasn't he? I think he's
I listened to
I
it.
think
I
he's a
didn't watch.
person of color. And
Piers Morgan.
No, the guy
No,
who's interviewing the British guy.
Piers Morgan is nuts.
Yeah.
He is uncolored.
He's almost as white as Jeff.
This guy's essentially just arguing with Piers Morgan, taking the opposite side of
Yeah.
Piers Morgan. And Piers Morgan says, I'm not going to do this, and storms out of his own show, just walked
It
away.
was very Meghan Markle. Of
And
him.
it was a quit, or he just walked out of the
No,
interview.
I don't think he said I quit. He just said, I'm not doing this. And he
on
walked
my own
out.
show.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting that he didn't tell the person who was on his show, like, you can leave. He chose to walk out himself.
The
Anyways.
guy's like, where do I go now?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the show's mine now.
I guess I won.
Yeah.
Do I
and
get
He's
my-
king of the hill.
and,
my
and then
ginger
they
ale?
let him go. So he's been let go from his show or whatever.
Poor guy's
because of
gonna
that.
get a terrible severance package.
Yeah.
Not do anything ever again in his life. He's probably not gonna have any support from QAnon or anything.
Yeah, I'm sure Fox News won't help him out in any way.
So I don't know. I guess I don't know where you go from here with it. Do you just, like Phil said, say, as a British citizen, like, why are we still paying like money for royalty?
Do the British people pay for
They
out of
pay
their taxes?
property taxes, and the actual royal family owns a lot of the land, and so people are paying to like the regent of their area. So it'd be like if we pay property taxes to Utah County, and because Spencer Cox owns the capital buildings of each county, he gets a percentage of that. Is similar to I don't know if that's a perfect way of explaining how it is, but I know
Makes-
that
if
they
it is,
basically
They
makes
get
sense.
some of the money.
they get the money from property
taxes.
taxes. So it's in like the
And from Jeffrey
hundreds of
Epstein.
millions. It's not in the billions anymore. Like they don't make I think what's her name that wrote Harry Potter
J.K.
makes
Rowling.
more than the Queen. So
Yeah, but she obviously makes a lot to do to nothing.
the Queen,
J.K.
or,
Rowling or the Queen?
The Queen.
or both, or
They're both. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they both.
I mean,
have-
J.K. Rowling wrote a bunch of
well,
books.
she's also the head of the Church of England. Like she's the figurehead of the
Well,
Church of
and
England, and she also
Isn't she also like a tiebreaker for their Senate or whatever?
Probably.
Like something like that.
So she's the Kamala Harris
Yeah.
of.
Is that really what it is? She breaks ties in there.
I think she
one of
breaks
their
ties,
bodies.
or if they're deadlocked, she makes a decision or something like that.
She can sign like executive order esque things too, because
Yeah.
I think I remember when they basically made it legal for gay marriage. Like she had to sign the document for it or something like that. But I don't know if that had more to do with the Church of England stuff. I don't know.
It's really dumb.
To have a
British
royalty.
people.
British people in general are dumb.
Well, for that reason. I'm sure they would say
Well,
Americans are dumb for
Yeah,
specific
our-
you could
reasons.
just as easily
Because our
say
two-party system is
the
dumb.
the tithing that we spend that goes to prophets and apostles is dumb.
Yeah.
So because we believe that it's important.
But
and that
those
it
guys are
adds-
dope.
They're not making hundreds of millions as far as we know.
Just hundreds of thousands.
Just hundreds of thousands, which as a corporate entity isn't terrible. They're making as much as senators. So give or take for the rest of their lives.
And they're freaking awesome.
They're awesome.
Right, Devin?
Who's your favorite prophet ever besides Rand Paul?
Of course, it's Gordon B. Hinckley
You
Hands
got
down.
your tattoo of B. Hinks.
on the rear side.
But he was a
I wouldn't
forger.
pee on his pillow.
He was a forger. Why do you say that, Jake?
He's the one who bought
He's
the
the one.
documents from.
You think he was
Mark
in on it
Hoffman.
He was
with
in on it.
Mark Hoffman?
He killed Mark Hoffman.
He killed Mark Hoffman, took his forgeries, and sold them.
Yeah, that's where. And then built City Creek.
You heard it here
that's where the
first
mall
on
money
American
came from.
Fork Podcast. Gordon B. Hinckley, the Mormon prophet,
And that's why Phil loves him so
murdered
much.
people for their ancient documents.
And that's why we're going to cancel all the prophets and only put princesses and princes in their place instead, just to spite Phil.
Yep, Mormon royalty. It'll be Mitt Romney, his Prince Highness.
Prince Highness.
Yep,
Wow.
it's getting late.
Well, thanks everyone for listening and making it this far along this very long episode, which I'm sure we'll cut down to about 17 minutes. But it's been fun. Try to like us, but to subscribe whether you like us or not.
Yeah, and if you quit listening, like we know you did, just start listening again.
It's going to get so much better.
Oh, it will. We're seriously going to put so much effort into making it better.
We're gonna start.
Just like you can tell from this episode.
We're gonna. We're gonna start trying next week.
No. Yeah. Oh, it's a man.